ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷ പരിപാടിയിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുവാൻ എത്തിച്ചേർന്ന ബഹുമാന്യരെ, വിശിഷ്ട വ്യക്തികളെ, പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെ, എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. കാലടി ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യ സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാല വർഷം തോറും നടത്തിവരുന്ന ഏറ്റവും ഗരിമയാർന്ന ഒരു സാംസ്കാരിക പരിപാടിയാണ് ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷം. വൈജ്ഞാനിക രംഗത്ത് വിസ്മയം തീർത്ത ഭീഷണാശാലികളുടെ മഹത്തായ സംഭാവനകളെ ലോകത്തിന് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തുന്ന വേദി കൂടിയാണ് ഇത്. വിപുലമായ തയ്യാറെടുപ്പുകളോടെ, വൈവിധ്യമാർന്ന പരിപാടികളോടെ ഈ വർഷത്തെ ശങ്കരജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇന്ന് തുടക്കം കുറിക്കുകയാണ്. അർത്ഥപൂർണമായ ഈ സംരംഭത്തിൽ പങ്കെടുക്കുവാൻ എത്തിച്ചേർന്ന എല്ലാ വിശിഷ്ട വ്യക്തികളെയും പ്രിയപ്പെട്ടവരെയും സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയ്ക്ക് വേണ്ടി സ്നേഹോഷ്മളമായി അഭിവാദ്യം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഇന്ത്യയിലെ 18 സംസ്കൃത യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റികളിൽ നാക്കിന്റെ A+ ഗ്രേഡ് നേടിയ ആദ്യത്തെ സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാല എന്ന നിലയിലും കേരളത്തിലെ സർവകലാശാലകളിൽ നാക്കിന്റെ A+ ഗ്രേഡ് നേടിയ ആദ്യത്തെ സർവകലാശാല എന്ന നിലയിലും ഏറെ അഭിമാനത്തോടു കൂടിയാണ് സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാല ഈ വർഷത്തെ ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങൾക്ക് ആതിഥ്യം അരുളുന്നത്. അദ്വൈത വേദാന്ത ദർശനത്തിന്റെ മൗലിക സിദ്ധാന്തങ്ങളെ പ്രസ്ഥാനത്രയങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഷ്യങ്ങളിലൂടെയും മൗലിക രചനകളിലൂടെയും ലോകത്തിനു മുമ്പിൽ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചുറപ്പിച്ച മഹാനായ തത്വചിന്തകനായിരുന്നു ജഗദ്ഗുരു ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യർ. പ്രപഞ്ചമൊന്നാകെ ഒന്നിൽ നിന്ന് ഉണ്ടായതാണെന്നും എല്ലാം ഏകവും അദ്വിതീയവുമാണെന്നും അദ്വൈത വേദാന്തത്തിലൂടെ ശങ്കരൻ സ്ഥാപിച്ചു. ബ്രഹ്മം മാത്രമാണ് സത്യമെന്നും മറ്റെല്ലാം മായ മാത്രമാണെന്നും അദ്ദേഹം സമർപ്പിച്ചു. ഈ പ്രപഞ്ചത്തിന്റെ നാനാത്വത്തിന് പിന്നിലുള്ള ഏകത്വത്തെക്കുറിച്ചും സർവചരാചരങ്ങൾ തമ്മിലുള്ള സമത്വത്തെക്കുറിച്ചും അവയുടെ പാരസ്പര്യങ്ങളെക്കുറിച്ചും പാരമാർത്ഥിക സത്യത്തെക്കുറിച്ചുമുള്ള ആശയവാദത്തെ ഖണ്ഡന മണ്ഡനങ്ങളിലൂടെ സ്ഫുടം ചെയ്തെടുത്ത സാരസ്വതമാണ് ശങ്കരദർശനം. ജിജ്ഞാസുക്കൾക്ക് വിജ്ഞാനം പകർന്നു താർക്കികമായ സംവാദങ്ങളിലൂടെ ഇതര ദാർശനിക പദ്ധതികളെ ഉപജീവിച്ചു. ഭാരതത്തിലുടനീളം അദ്വൈത ദർശനത്തിന്റെ പ്രചാരകനായി പര്യടനം നടത്തി 4 ദിക്കുകളിലും മഠങ്ങൾ സ്ഥാപിച്ച് അദ്വൈത വേദാന്ത ദർശനത്തിന് അടിത്തറ പാകിയ മഹാമനീഷിയായിരുന്നു ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യർ. ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യരുടെ ജന്മം കൊണ്ട് പ്രസിദ്ധിയാർജിച്ച കാലടിയുടെ മണ്ണിൽ ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യരുടെ നാമധേയം കൊണ്ട് വിശുദ്ധമായ ഈ സർവകലാശാലയിൽ തത്വജ്ഞാനി ദിനമായി ഇന്ന് ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷിക്കുകയാണ്. കേരളം കണ്ട ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ഭീഷണാശാലിയായ ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യരുടെ മഹിതമായ ധൈഷണികതയ്ക്ക് മുന്നിൽ സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാല ശ്രദ്ധാഞ്ജലികൾ അർപ്പിക്കുന്നു.
The galaxy of intellectuals, honorable guests, benevolent teachers, research scholars and beloved friends, good morning. On behalf of Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, we are pleased to welcome you all to this auspicious occasion. By observing this day as a Philosopher's Day, we mark the initiation of this year's Sree Sankara Jayanthi celebrations. We appreciate you taking time off your busy schedule to join us today. Let's make this a time to learn and grow. Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit is the first university in Kerala and the only Sanskrit university in India to be accredited by NAC with the A+ grade. As one of the pioneering Sanskrit universities in India, it offers an abode of educational excellence where liberating knowledge is generated and whose productive dissemination is justified for self-actualization and social transformation. Philosopher and theologian Sree Sankara is the most renowned exponent of the Advaita Vedanta school of philosophy. It is from his doctrines the main currents of the modern Indian thought are derived. Through his works, Acharya offers a harmonizing presentation of the Shastras with liberating knowledge of the self at its core. His commentaries on the Brahma Sutra, the principal Upanishads, and the Bhagavad Gita affirms his belief in one eternal, unchanging reality, Brahman, and the illusion of plurality and differentiation. In an attempt to commemorate the birth and life of this great visionary and philosopher with a series of academic and art events, the university annually organizes the Sree Sankara Jayanthi celebrations. Where words fail, music speaks. Hence, we'll begin this year's Sankara Jayanthi celebrations with Sangeeta Sabarya, the musical recitals of Shankarakitis, a tribute offered by the students of the Department of Music. We have with us PhD scholars K.R. Aryadatta and Vishnu Prabha P, MPhil scholars Gopika S. and Meera R, along with postgraduate student Anjali S. Bhatt, to perform the musical recitals of Ganesha Pancharatnam, Annapurna Shatakam, Shiva Panchakshara Stotram, and Bhajagodikam. They are accompanied by guest lecturers Anandu Lal and Arun Kumar P on the violin and the mridangam respectively.
ശങ്കരജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങളുടെ ഒന്നാം ഘട്ടമായ ഇന്ന് സംഗീത വിഭാഗം വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുടെ സംഗീത സഭയ്ക്ക് ബഹുമാന്യനായ പ്രൊഫസർ പി ദിവാകരന്റെ ശ്രീ ശങ്കര വാർഷിക പ്രഭാഷണം, വിവിധ എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണം, ചിത്രകലാ പ്രദർശനം, ഭരതനാട്യം മോഹിനിയാട്ടം വിഭാഗങ്ങളുടെ കലാപ്രകടനങ്ങൾ എന്നിവ ആരംഭിക്കും. ആദ്യം സർവകലാശാലയിലെ സംഗീത വിഭാഗം വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾ അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്ന സംഗീത സഭയാണ്. ശങ്കര കൃതികളെ ആസ്പദമാക്കി അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഈ പരിപാടിയിൽ സംഗീത വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ഗവേഷക വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനികളായ കുമാരി കെ.ആർ. ആര്യദത്ത, ശ്രീമതി വിഷ്ണു പ്രഭ, MPhil വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനികളായ കുമാരിമാർ ഗോപിക എസ്, മീര ആർ, MA സെക്കൻഡ് സെമസ്റ്റർ വിദ്യാർത്ഥിനിയായ കുമാരി അഞ്ജലി എസ് ഭട്ട് എന്നിവർ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നു. പിന്നണിയിൽ സംഗീത വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ഗസ്റ്റ് ഫാക്കൽറ്റികളായ സർവശ്രീ അനന്തു ലാൽ വയലിൻ, അരുൺ പി മൃദംഗം. ഇവിടെ അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ശങ്കരകൃതികൾ ഗണേശ പഞ്ചരത്നം, അന്നപൂർണാഷ്ടകം, ശിവ പഞ്ചാക്ഷര സ്തോത്രം, മോഹമുദ്രം അഥവാ പച്ചകൂടിയത്. പരിപാടികൾ അവതരിപ്പിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
मुदागरातमोदकं सदा मुक्तिसाधकं कलाधरावतं सदं विलासिभोगरक्षकं मुदागरातमोदकं सदा मुक्तिसाधकं कलाधरावतं सदं विलासिभोगरक्षकं मनायकैकनायकं विनाशिते भदैत्यनं नराशुभाशुनाशकं नमामिनं विनायकं मनायकैकनायकं विनाशिते भदैत्यनं नराशुभाशुनाशकं नमामिनं विनायकं नमामिनं विनायकं नमस्सुरारिनच्चरं नदाधिकामदुत्तरं नमस्सुरारिनच्चरं नदाधिकामदुत्तरं सुरेश्वरं निरेश्वरं गणेश्वरं गणेश्वरं महेश्वरं लोकशङ्करं निरस्तदैत्य कुञ्जरं हरे करोदरं वरं हरे भवक्रमक्षरं समस्तलोकशङ्करं निरस्तदैत्य कुञ्जरं हरे करोदरं वरं हरे भवक्रमक्षरं कृपाकरं क्षमाकरं उदाकरं यशस्करं नमस्करं नमस्कृतं नमस्करोमि भास्वरम् नमस्करोमि भास्वरम् हरिञ्जनातिमातरं चिदन्तलोकिभाजनं पुरारि पूर्वनन्दनं सुरारि गर्भजर्भणं हरिञ्जनातिमातरं चिदन्तलोकिभाजनं पुरारि पूर्वनन्दनं सुरारि गर्भजर्भणं प्रपञ्चनाशभीषणं धनञ्जयादिभूषणं कपोलदानवारणं भजे पुराणवारणम् भजे पुराणवारणम् विराटकान्तगन्धकान्तिमन्दकान्तरात्मजं भजिन्यरूपमन्दहीनसुन्दरायतनं विराटकान्तगन्धकान्तिमन्दकान्तरात्मजं भजिन्यरूपमन्दहीनसुन्दरायतनं विरन्दरेदिनन्दरं वसन्तमेवयोगिनं भवेदनन्दमेवरं विचिन्तयामि सन्दरं विरन्दरेदिनन्दरं वसन्तमेवयोगिनं भवेदनन्दमेवरं विचिन्तयामि सन्दरम् नित्यानन्दकरी वराभयकरी सौन्दर्यरत्नाकरी अद्भुताखिलदोषपावनकरी प्रत्यक्षमाहेश्वरी प्राणेयाचलवंशपावनकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी नानारत्नविचित्रभूषणकरी देवामराडम्बरी मुक्ताहारविकम्पमानविरसत्कचोदकुम्भाकरी काश्मीरागरुवासिकागरुचिर काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी योगानन्दकरी रिपुक्षयकरी करवैकनिष्ठाकरी चन्द्राकानलभासमानलकरी त्रैलोक्यरक्षाकरी सर्वैश्वर्यकरी कपफलकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी कैलासाचलकन्दरायकरी गौरी उमाशाङ्करी कौमारीनिकमाथगोचरकरी ओङ्कारबीजाक्षरी मोक्षद्वारकपाटपाटनकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बनकरी मादानपूर्णेश्वरी दृश्यादृश्यविभूतिवाहनकरी ब्रह्मा करि श्री विश्वेशमन प्रसादन करि काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी दीक्षांत समस्त वंदन करि शंभो प्रिया शंकरी काशी रत्नपुरेश्वरी हृदयनि विश्वेश्वरी शंकरी स्वर्गद्वार कवाट नगरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी पूर्वे सर्वजनेश्वरी जयकरी माया रूपासागरी राधे नीलसमान कुण्डलधरी नित्यानंदेश्वरी साक्षात् मोक्षकरी सदा शुभकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी वेदे सर्वविचित्ररत्नरचिता दाक्षायणी सुन्दरी वामा स्वागुपयोधरा प्रियकरी सौभाग्यमाहेश्वरी भक्ताभीष्टकरी सदा शुभकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी चन्द्राकानन कोटि कोटि सदृशि चन्द्रांशुबिम्बाधरी चन्द्रकान्ति समान कुण्डलधरी चन्द्रार्धवर्णेश्वरी माला पुस्तक पाशसाकुशधरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी शतत्राणकरी महाभयकरी माया कृपासागरी सर्वानन्दकरी सदा शिवकरी विश्वेश्वरी श्रीकरी रक्षाबन्धकरी निरामयकरी काशीपुराधीश्वरी भिक्षां देहि गृहावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी भिक्षां देहि कृपावलम्बन करि मादारभुवनेश्वरी नारेन्द्रहराय विलोचनाय भस्माङ्गरागाय वन्देक्षराय नित्याय शुद्धाय दिगम्बराय तस्मै नमः शिवाय नमः शिवाय मंदाकिनी सलिलचन्द्र शिवाय लङ्केश्वर प्रमदनाय महेश्वराय मन्दारमुख्य बहुपुष्पधूपोदिनाय तस्मै भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दे भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गुणमते सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले सम्प्राप्ते सन्निहिते काले रवि नदी गच्छति करणे रवि नदी गच्छति करणे भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गुणमते मूढजनी धनागमकृष्णा मूढजनी धनागमकृष्णा कुरु सद्गुरुनि मनसि कृष्णा कुरु सद्गुरुनि मनसि कृष्णा यल्लभसि निज कर्मोपादं यल्लभसि निज कर्मोपादं वितं वियोनचित्तं वितं वियोनचित्तं भज गोविन्दं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज गुणमते नामकृतो वाचन सकल निज परिवारोरङ्ग गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मुदमहे मा गुरुवन जन यौवन प्रगति दिनेश काल सहनं मा गुरुवन जन यौवन प्रगति दिनेश काल सहनं माया गोविन्दं भज मुदमहे सुरमन्दिरनिवासक शनियाभूगलं कठिनं भासक सुरमन्दिरनिवासक शनियाभूगलं कठिनं भासक सर्वपरिहर गोविन्दं भज मुदमहे भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदरीता भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदरीता गङ्गाजलमर्कणिकावीरा भगवद्गीता किञ्चिदरीता गङ्गाजलमर्कणिकावीरा सप्तवीर मुरारी समाचार सप्तवीर मुरारी समाचार प्रिय Govindam Bhaja
That was indeed a treat to the ears. Thank you, dear teachers and students. Honorable Vice Chancellor Professor M.B. Narayan, Registrar Dr. M.B. Gopalakrishnan, Guest of Honor Professor P.T. Divagaran, Distinguished Professor B. Ramakrishna Bhatt, and General Convener of Sankaracharya Jayanthi celebrations Dr. V.K. Bhavani, to please come to the stage and occupy the distinguished chairs.
അടുത്ത പരിപാടി ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. സ്റ്റേജിലേക്ക് ബഹുമാന്യനായ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ ഡോക്ടർ എം വി നാരായണൻ സാർ, ഇന്നത്തെ ഗസ്റ്റ് ബഹുമാന്യനായ പ്രൊഫസർ പി.ടി. ദിവാകരൻ സാർ, രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാർ, രജിസ്ട്രാർ ഡോക്ടർ എം.പി. ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ, ഭവാനി ടീച്ചർ എന്നിവർ സ്റ്റേജിലേക്ക് വന്നിരിക്കണമെന്ന് വിനീതമായി അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുന്നു. ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷ പരിപാടിക്ക് ഔപചാരികമായി സ്വാഗതം ആശംസിക്കുന്നത് സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയുടെ ബഹുമാന്യനായ രജിസ്ട്രാർ ഡോക്ടർ എം പി ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണ, ചുങ്കത്തറ മാർത്തോമ കോളേജിലെ കൊമേഴ്സ് വിഭാഗത്തിലെ അസോസിയേറ്റ് പ്രൊഫസറായി ജോലി ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയുടെ രജിസ്ട്രാറായി അദ്ദേഹം ചുമതലയേൽക്കുന്നത്. മികച്ച അധ്യാപകൻ എന്ന നിലയിലും ഭരണാധികാരി എന്ന നിലയിലും ഗവേഷണ ഗൈഡ് എന്ന നിലയിലും മികവ് തെളിയിച്ച ഡോക്ടർ ഗോപാലകൃഷ്ണൻ സർ കോഴിക്കോട് സർവകലാശാലയിലെ സെനറ്റ് മെമ്പർ, അക്കാദമിക് കൗൺസിൽ മെമ്പർ, കണ്ണൂർ എം.ജി. സർവകലാശാലകളിലെ പി.ജി. ബോർഡ് ഓഫ് സ്റ്റഡീസ് മെമ്പർ, റൂസ്വയിലെ സംസ്ഥാനതല ടെക്നിക്കൽ സപ്പോർട്ട് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് മെമ്പർ തുടങ്ങിയ നിലയിൽ പ്രവർത്തിച്ചു.
Nothing can be more reassuring and heartwarming than affectionate words of welcome. Here, we have distinguished Professor Dr. M.B. Gopalakrishnan, Registrar of Sree Sankara University of Kaladi, and bestowed on him is the duty to deliver the welcome address. Before becoming an integral part of the university, Dr. M.B. Gopalakrishnan was an associate professor in the Department of Commerce at Marthoma College, Trivandrum. As an eminent scholar and a motivated administrator, he has immensely contributed to the field of academics. He has served as a Senate member as well as an academic council member at the University of Calicut. He also held positions such as the PG Board of Studies member of Kannur as well as Mahatma Gandhi University and a member of USA's Technical Support Group. We invite Dr. M.B. Gopalakrishnan to deliver the welcome address.
നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയുടെ ആദരണീയനായ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ ഡോക്ടർ എം പി നാരായണൻ സർ, ഇന്നത്തെ ശ്രീ ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങളുടെ മുഖ്യഭാഗമായ ശ്രീ ശങ്കര ആ ഒരു ലെക്ചർ നടത്താൻ വേണ്ടി നമ്മുടെ ക്ഷണം സ്വീകരിച്ചെത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള പ്രൊഫസർ പി.ടി. ദിവാകരൻ സർ, നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയിലെ ഏറ്റവും പ്രഗത്ഭ പണ്ഡിതൻ, നമ്മുടെ അഡ്ജക്ട് ഫാക്കൽറ്റിയായിട്ടുള്ള ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനായ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സർ, നമ്മുടെ പ്രോഗ്രാമിൻ്റെ ജനറൽ കൺവീനർ പ്രൊഫസർ ഡോക്ടർ വി.കെ. ഭവാനി ടീച്ചർ, യോഗത്തിൽ സമ്മതിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനരും വിശിഷ്ടരുമായ അതിഥികളെ, പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട സഹപ്രവർത്തകരെ, വിദ്യാർത്ഥി സുഹൃത്തുക്കൾ, എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. കാലടി എന്ന കൊച്ചു ഗ്രാമം ലോകത്തിന് സംഭാവന ചെയ്ത ഏറ്റവും വിശിഷ്ടമായ ഒരു അമൂല്യ നിധിയാണ് ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യ. പെരിയാറിന്റെ തീരത്ത് കാലടി എന്നുള്ള കൊച്ചു ഗ്രാമത്തിൽ ശ്രീ ശങ്കരാചാര്യയുടെ നാമധേയത്തിൽ പരിരസിക്കുന്ന നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാല എല്ലാ വർഷവും ഏറ്റവും ഉജ്ജ്വലമായ തരത്തിൽ ആചരിക്കുന്ന ഒന്നാണ് ശ്രീ ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങൾ. നമ്മുടെ ഈ വർഷത്തെ ശ്രീശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങൾ ഇന്ന് ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. ഏതാണ്ട് അടുത്ത 3 മാസക്കാലം വൈവിധ്യമാർന്ന പരിപാടികളാണ് ശ്രീശങ്കര ജയന്തിയുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട് നമ്മൾ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത്. അതിന്റെ സമുചിതമായ ആരംഭമാണ് ഇന്നിവിടെ കുറിക്കുന്നത്. ഇന്ന് വ്യത്യസ്തമായ പരിപാടികൾ നമ്മൾ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. സംഗീത സഭ്യ കഴിഞ്ഞു, ശ്രദ്ധാഞ്ജലി കഴിഞ്ഞു, ലെക്ചർ ഇപ്പോൾ നടക്കും. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണം നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഉച്ചകഴിഞ്ഞ് ഫൈനാൻസ് MFA വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുടെ ആർട്ട് എക്സിബിഷൻ നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അതിനുശേഷം മോഹിനിയാട്ടത്തിലെയും ഭരതനാട്യത്തിലെയും വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുടെ അരങ്ങേറ്റമുണ്ട്. അങ്ങനെ വൈവിധ്യപൂർണമായ പരിപാടികൾ ഇന്ന് നടക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഓഗസ്റ്റ് 15 വരെയുള്ള കാലഘട്ടത്തിൽ വ്യത്യസ്തമായ പരിപാടികൾ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിക്ക് അകത്തും പുറത്തും നടത്തുവാനാണ് നമ്മൾ പ്ലാൻ ചെയ്തിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഈ പരിപാടിയിൽ സംബന്ധിക്കുന്ന ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനായ വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങളെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുക എന്നുള്ളതാണ് എൻ്റെ ഉത്തരവാദിത്വം. നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയുടെ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറായി ഡോക്ടർ MD നാരായണൻ സാർ ചുമതലയേറ്റിട്ട് കഷ്ടിച്ച് 2 മാസമേ ആവുന്നു. അതോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ വ്യക്തമായ ദിശാബോധം നൽകി എല്ലാ പ്രവർത്തനത്തിലും മുമ്പിൽ നിൽക്കുന്ന നമ്മുടെ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറെ ഈ ശ്രീശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷത്തിന് ഔപചാരികത പേരിൽ ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനത്തോടെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഇന്ന് ശ്രീശങ്കര ആനുവൽ ലെക്ചർ നടത്താൻ വേണ്ടി എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുള്ളത് ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനായ പ്രൊഫസർ TP ദിവാകരൻ സാറാണ്. ആമുഖം ആവശ്യമില്ലാത്ത പണ്ഡിത ശ്രേഷ്ഠൻ. തന്റെ വിജ്ഞാന സബരിയ പല മേഖലകളിലേക്ക് തിരിച്ചുവിട്ട ഈ ഒരു അതുല്യ പ്രതിഭയെ നമ്മുടെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നതിൽ വലിയ അഭിമാനമുണ്ട് എനിക്ക്. അധ്യാപകനായി ടാറ്റ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഓഫ് ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ച് ബോംബെയിൽ ഫിസിക്സ് അധ്യാപകനായി സേവനം ആരംഭിച്ച് ശാസ്ത്രത്തിന്റെ സകല മേഖലകളും സ്പർശിക്കുന്ന വിവിധ ഗവേഷണ പദ്ധതികളിൽ മുഴുകി അദ്ദേഹം കലാരംഗത്തുള്ള ശാസ്ത്രത്തിന്റെ പല കൈവഴികളും കലാരംഗവുമായുള്ള ബന്ധത്തെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ആധികാരികമായി സംസാരിക്കാൻ കഴിവുള്ള ഇന്ത്യയിലെ ഏറ്റവും തലയെടുപ്പുള്ള ഒരു പണ്ഡിതനാണ്. പണ്ഡിതരെ കുറിച്ച് എന്തെങ്കിലും കൂടുതൽ പറയുന്നത് അവരെ അവമാനിക്കലാവും എന്നുള്ളതുകൊണ്ട് ഈ ദിവാകരൻ സാറിനെ, പ്രൊഫസർ TP ദിവാകരൻ സാറിനെ സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയിലേക്ക് ഏറ്റവും ബഹുമാനപൂർവ്വം, ആദരപൂർവ്വം, അഭിമാനപൂർവ്വം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയിൽ യാതൊരു ആമുഖവും ആവശ്യമില്ലാത്ത വ്യക്തിത്വമാണ് പ്രൊഫസർ ഡോക്ടർ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാർ. ലാളിത്യവും പാണ്ഡിത്യവും ഒരു വ്യക്തിയിൽ സമ്മേളിച്ചാൽ അതാരാകും എന്ന ചോദ്യത്തിന് ഉത്തരമാണ് ആദരണീയനായ ഭട്ട് സാർ. മുമ്പ് പലപ്പോഴും ഞാനിവിടെ പല വേദികളിലും പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഞാൻ ആദ്യമായി അദ്ദേഹത്തെ കാണുമ്പോൾ അന്നത്തെ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ റൂമിൽ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് ഞാൻ ആദ്യമായി ഭട്ട് സാറിനെ കാണുന്നത്. ഭട്ട് സാർ വന്നപ്പോൾ അന്നത്തെ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറും പ്രോ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറും അദ്ദേഹത്തെ സ്വീകരിച്ച രീതി കണ്ട് ഞാൻ ശരിക്കും അത്ഭുതപരാന്തനായിപ്പോയി. അത്രയും ഔന്നിത്യമുള്ള ലാളിത്യം കൊണ്ട് നമ്മളൊക്കെ കീഴടക്കുന്ന പണ്ഡിതനായ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാറാണ് എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണം ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി എത്തിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഏറ്റവും സ്നേഹത്തോടെ, അഭിമാനത്തോടെ, നിറഞ്ഞ ബഹുമാനത്തോടെ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാറിനെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യും. നമ്മുടെ ശ്രീശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങളുടെ ചുക്കാൻ പിടിക്കുന്നത് പ്രിയപ്പെട്ട ഭവാനി ടീച്ചറാണ്. ഒരുപാട് എഫർട്ട് എടുത്താണ് ടീച്ചർ പ്രോഗ്രാമുകൾ കോർഡിനേറ്റ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. നിറഞ്ഞ സ്നേഹത്തോടെ ടീച്ചറിനെ ഈ യോഗത്തിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഈ യോഗത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ ബഹുമാനായ സിൻഡിക്കേറ്റ് അംഗങ്ങൾ പങ്കെടുക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അവരെ ഏറ്റവും സ്നേഹത്തോടെ ഈ യോഗത്തിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ഈ യോഗത്തിൽ എടുത്തു പറയേണ്ട ഒരു കാര്യം, ശ്രീ ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങളുടെ ഭാഗമായി എൻഡോമെന്റുകൾ നമ്മൾ വിതരണം ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. ഈ എൻഡോമെന്റ് ഏർപ്പെടുത്തിയ പല ഉന്നത ശിക്ഷാ വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങളും ഈ യോഗത്തിൽ സംബന്ധിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. അത് എടുത്തു പറയേണ്ടത് നമ്മുടെ മുൻ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ ഡോക്ടർ രാജശേഖരൻ സാർ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. തികഞ്ഞ സ്നേഹത്തോടെ സാറിനെ ബഹുമാനത്തോടെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. മറ്റു പലരും എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഈ എൻഡോമെന്റ് ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ചെയ്ത പല വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങളും പങ്കുചേർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഓരോരുത്തരെയും പേരെടുത്ത് ഞാൻ പറയുന്നില്ല. എല്ലാവരെയും സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. എൻഡോമെന്റ് ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങാനെത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള വിദ്യാർത്ഥി സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെ ഓരോരുത്തരെയും സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. നമ്മുടെ ക്ഷണം സ്വീകരിച്ച് മറ്റ് സർവകലാശാലകളിൽ നിന്നും അധ്യാപകർ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. കോഴിക്കോട് സർവകലാശാലയിൽ നിന്നും മധുസാറിനെ ഇവിടെ കാണാം. ഫിലോസഫി വിഭാഗത്തിലെ മധുസാർ എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുണ്ട്. അങ്ങനെ മറ്റു പലരുമുണ്ട്. അവരെയൊക്കെ നമ്മുടെ അതിഥികളായി എത്തിച്ചേർന്നിട്ടുള്ള ഇവരെയൊക്കെ ഏറ്റവും സ്നേഹത്തോടെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. മാധ്യമ സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. നമ്മുടെ യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിലെ അധ്യാപക അനധ്യാപക സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെയും വിദ്യാർത്ഥി സുഹൃത്തുക്കളെയും മറ്റെല്ലാ അതിഥികളെയും ഏറ്റവും സ്നേഹത്തോടെ സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. നന്ദി.
Thank you, sir.
ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷ പരിപാടിക്ക് അധ്യക്ഷം വഹിക്കുന്നത് സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയുടെ സമാരാധ്യനായ വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ ഡോക്ടർ LV നാരായണൻ മാഷ. കോഴിക്കോട് സർവകലാശാലയിലെ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് വിഭാഗം പ്രൊഫസറും സ്കൂൾ ഓഫ് ലാംഗ്വേജസ് ഡയറക്ടറുമായി പ്രവർത്തിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയുടെ പുതിയ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറായി അദ്ദേഹം ചുമതലയേറ്റത്. കാലിക്കറ്റ് സർവകലാശാലയുടെ എഡ്യൂക്കേഷണൽ മൾട്ടിമീഡിയ റിസർച്ച് സെന്ററിന്റെ ഡയറക്ടർ, ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് വിഭാഗം അധ്യക്ഷൻ, ജപ്പാനിലെ മിയാസാക്കി ഇന്റർനാഷണൽ കോളേജിലെ ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ഓഫ് ലിറ്ററേച്ചർ ആൻഡ് കൾച്ചർ വിഭാഗം പ്രൊഫസർ, UAE യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് ഷാർജ, UK യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് എക്സെറ്റർ തുടങ്ങിയ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിൽ ലെക്ചറായി, കണ്ണൂർ ഹൈദരാബാദ് സർവകലാശാലയിലെ വിസിറ്റിംഗ് പ്രൊഫസറായി, UGCയുടെ അഡ്ജന്റ് പ്രൊഫസറായി അദ്ദേഹം പ്രവർത്തിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഓസ്ട്രേലിയയിലെ സിഡ്നി സർവകലാശാലയുടെ ഉൾപ്പെടെ നിരവധി ദേശീയ അന്തർദേശീയ ജേണലുകളുടെ എഡിറ്ററായും അദ്ദേഹം സേവനമനുഷ്ഠിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. ബ്രിട്ടീഷ് കോമൺവെൽത്ത് സ്കോളർഷിപ്പ്, കേരള സാഹിത്യ അക്കാദമിയുടെ കുറ്റിപ്പുഴ എൻഡോമെന്റ് ലിറ്റററി അവാർഡ്, KP മേനോൻ അവാർഡ് തുടങ്ങിയ പുരസ്കാരങ്ങൾ അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ലഭിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. UK യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റി ഓഫ് എക്സെറ്റിന്റെ നിന്ന് ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് സാഹിത്യത്തിൽ PhD നേടിയിട്ടുള്ള അദ്ദേഹം ഇംഗ്ലീഷിലും മലയാളത്തിലുമായി നിരവധി ലേഖനങ്ങളും പുസ്തകങ്ങളും പ്രസിദ്ധീകരിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. കൂടാതെ കലാ സാംസ്കാരിക രംഗത്ത് നിറസാന്നിധ്യവുമാണ് അദ്ദേഹം.
We are humbled by the extreme presence of the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor M.A. Narayan. As a former professor in the Department of English and director of the School of Languages at the University of Calicut, Professor M.A. Narayan has an extensive teaching experience of over 3 decades. He has held numerous prestigious positions, including his tenure as the Dean of Sanskrit University's Foreign Language Department, Academic Council member, and the Director of Education and Multimedia Research Center at the University of Calicut. He has also served as a professor in the Department of Literature and Cultural Studies at Miyazaki International College, Japan. An expert in the field of English language and literature, he has to his editorial credit various national as well as international journals. He is also the proud recipient of British Commonwealth Scholarship, Kerala Sahitya Academy's Kuttipura Endowment Literary Award, and KP Menon Award. We feel privileged to invite Narayan sir for the presidential address.
Professor P.P. Divanaran, Professor Amarshna Bhatt, Dr. Gopalakrishnan, and Professor Bhavani. മലയാളത്തിൽ തുടങ്ങാം. ഈ പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തലുകൾ ഇനി നമുക്ക് അവസാനിപ്പിക്കാം. ഇതിനകം എന്നെ പരിചയപ്പെടേണ്ടവർ പരിചയപ്പെട്ട് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടാവും. എന്നതിനാൽ ഇവിടെ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു എന്നതിന്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ മാത്രം പരിചയപ്പെട്ടാൽ മതിയാകുന്നതിനാൽ ഇനി തൊട്ട് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തലുകൾ വേണ്ട. വളരെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തേണ്ട ആളുകളുണ്ട്. കുറ്റായിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞതല്ലാട്ടോ. I was thinking about the whole idea of Sankara Jayanthi. Now, Sankara Jayanthi is being organized by many different agencies, many different institutions. And what can a university do which has been named after the great philosopher, the great thinker? Now, coming to think of it, one also realizes that there are not many universities which have been named after philosophers and thinkers. We have universities named after politicians. We may have universities named after public figures, but very few universities which are actually named after a philosopher. In that mode, I understood that the way in which the Sankara Jayanthi has been celebrated here and continues to get celebrated, beginning with the Philosopher's Day, is a fitting tribute to one of the greatest thinkers that India and the world has ever come to know. And if you look further, one probably can find a parallel with the ideal of the academic or the intellectual that we all hold dear to our own minds today too. The idea of debate, of dialogue, of discourse, which is so central to academic and intellectual practice, was exactly what Sankara was engaged in. He, of course, did not limit himself to an institution like most of us do. He traveled the whole country. He went from place to place, entering into dialogue with people who actually held commitments and convictions quite opposite to his, and to a great extent also managed to convince them, or sometimes beat them, and establish what later came to be the dogma of Shankara. Now, was Shankara dogmatic? Is an interesting question. If you look at his works, if you go through the kind of dialogues that he entered into, he was probably not dogmatic at all, though later on there have been attempts to turn him into a dogma, which naturally has had its own backlashes. But today, when we are actually looking at Shankara from a university's point of view and thinking of him as a philosopher, what started off this day's program with music is probably the most ideal thing to do. Because all arts, in one way or another, endeavor to reach the level of music. And all sciences try to reach mathematics. All humanities and social sciences endeavor to become philosophy. So in a sense, a kind of merge or a coming together of music, philosophy, and of course mathematics in the form of Professor P.P. Divagaran, who's going to speak about Indian mathematics, I thought is probably the greatest tribute that an intellectual institution, an institution that is engaged in the practice of pedagogy, that is engaged in the intellectual pursuits of the humanities and social sciences, can possibly pay to this great philosopher, thinker, theologian. Now, Professor Divagaran probably requires no introduction. They will definitely introduce him. But one thing has to be said. One of the greatest burdens of modernity has been its tendency towards specialization. Now, there are historical, cultural, and pedagogical reasons behind such specializations. Because indeed, when one needs to have more intense, more focused, more, shall we say, deep kind of knowledge production, it may be necessary for us to have specializations. But at the same time, we are in this very curious situation where we are so far into specialization, but at the same time, we are attempting willy-nilly to come out of it in terms of these words which usually do not make much sense to us. Words like interdisciplinarity, multidisciplinarity, convergence, etc., etc. It's a very curious thing because all through we are trained to actually go in one direction, and then later on we are pulled in the other direction. We move into our own shells, and then we are asked to move out of those shells and go and understand the other shells that other people inhabit. Now, why am I saying this? Professor Divakaran, throughout his entire life, has been primarily a physicist, a quantum physicist, a theoretical physicist, and whose work has primarily been connected with the idea of time in terms of quantum physics. It was much later that he started giving attention to mathematics. And giving attention to mathematics coming from the point of view of a physicist, one can probably expect what kind of work he could have done. But he chose to break those expectations. What you find in Professor Divakaran's work is a happy harmony, a merger of a number of knowledge systems. There is mathematics, the relationship between mathematics and linguistics. A little section in this book is about how Panini's thinking, or Panini's probably is going to speak about that today, how Panini's formulaic structure of language, how it effectively influenced the way in which mathematics actually evolved in India. But on another level, he actually brings mathematics into the terrain of a number of other disciplines. Just to tell a little story, Sankaracharya Madhavan എന്നത് ഇരിഞ്ഞാലക്കുടയിലാണ് എന്നതാണ് സാധാരണ നാം സങ്കല്പിക്കുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ ദിവാകരൻ മാഷ് ആ സംഗമഗ്രാമ മാധവൻ ഇരിഞ്ഞാലക്കുടയില് സംഗമഗ്രാമം എന്നുള്ളത് രണ്ട് ഇത് കൂടിച്ചേർന്നത് കൊണ്ട് അത് ഇരിഞ്ഞാലക്കുടയാണ് സംഗമഗ്രാമം എന്ന ധാരണയെ മറ്റൊരു രീതിയിലാണ് ചോദ്യം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. മാധവനും അദ്ദേഹവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടുള്ള മറ്റ് മാത്തമാറ്റീഷ്യൻസും നിരന്തരമായ ചർച്ചകൾ നടത്തിയിരുന്നു എന്നതുകൊണ്ട് വാരിയിലും പിഷാരടിയുമൊക്കെ അവർ തീർച്ചയായും ഒരു ദിവസത്തിനുള്ളിൽ യാത്ര ചെയ്തു പോകാവുന്ന ഒരു ദൂരത്തിനകത്തായിരിക്കണം എന്ന ഒരു സർമായിസ് അദ്ദേഹം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ആ കാലത്ത് മോട്ടോർ വാഹനങ്ങളില്ല, കാൽനടയായിട്ടോ ഏറിയാൽ കാളവണ്ടിയിലോ മാത്രം പോകാവുന്ന ഒരു ദൂരം എന്നത് ഒരു പ്രത്യേക പ്രവിശ്യക്കകത്തായിരിക്കുമെന്നും അത്തരം ഒരു പ്രവിശ്യയുടെ സാധ്യത എന്നത് ഭാരതപ്പുഴയുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ള കൂടിച്ചേരുന്ന ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് കൂടൽ വളരെ പ്രധാനമാണ്. നമുക്ക് കൂടല്ലൂരുണ്ട്, കൂടലാറ്റുപുറങ്ങളുണ്ട്, പുഴകൾ കൂടിച്ചേരുന്ന, അരുവികൾ കൂടിച്ചേരുന്ന, ആറുകൾ കൂടിച്ചേരുന്ന ഇടമാണ് പലപ്പോഴും സംസ്കാരത്തിന്റെ ഇടം തന്നെ. യൂഫ്രട്ടിസ് ടൈഗ്രിസ് ആണെങ്കിലും you have so many instances in history of that. അത്തരം ഒരു അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ അവയെ ഈ തെളിവുകളിൽ ഉപയോഗിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് അദ്ദേഹം മാധവന്റെ സ്ഥാനം എന്നത് കൂടല്ലൂരാണ് എന്ന് സ്ഥാപിച്ചത്. Now this is a very, very ingenious way of looking at mathematics. How the particular cultural, historical and geographic conditions actually go into the making of a certain culture of science, which probably very few scientists look at, burdened as they are by the ideas ultimately science is purely objective. Now, that is why Professor Divakaran's work becomes so crucial and his lecture becomes so crucial here today. He's talking about mathematics and its place in Indian culture and how, in a certain way of speaking, that mathematics can never be separated from, can never be diverted away from the concerns of other cultural discourses, whether it be linguistics or music. He's very interested in music. He will probably refuse and deny that, but he's a connoisseur of arts. He was asked to inaugurate the exhibition this afternoon and he pleaded ignorance and said, I don't understand art. He's probably written much more than many of us on art. Let that remain there. But what I'm trying to say is this convergence of a number of concerns, where if I am to borrow from Shankara's terminology, there is no dualism in thinking. There is no divergence, separation in thinking. and that the parallels, the mergers, the coming together of a number of knowledge disciplines in certain historical and cultural contexts is the terrain, the province of which Professor Diwaran is speaking. I cannot say how fortunate we are, because this is a scientist intellectual, a thinker who is a fit person, the most suitable person to pay tribute to Shankara. Thank you.
അക്കാദമിക സമൂഹം ജിജ്ഞാസയോടെ കേൾക്കാൻ കാത്തിരിക്കുന്ന പ്രൊഫസർ പി പി ദിവാകരൻ സാറിന്റെ മുഖ്യപ്രഭാഷണമാണ് അടുത്തത്. The place of mathematics in the creation of India's cultural identity എന്നതാണ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ പ്രഭാഷണ വിഷയം. മുംബൈയിലെ ടാറ്റ ഇൻസ്റ്റിറ്റ്യൂട്ട് ഓഫ് ഫണ്ടമെന്റൽ റിസർച്ചിലെ ഫിസിക്സ് വിഭാഗത്തിൽ പ്രൊഫസറായി സേവനമനുഷ്ഠിച്ചിരുന്ന ശ്രീ പി പി ദിവാകരൻ 1996 സർവീസിൽ നിന്നും വിരമിച്ചത്. സൈദ്ധാന്തികവും ഗണിത ചിന്താപരവുമായ ഭൗതിക ശാസ്ത്രത്തിൽ വ്യാപരിച്ച അദ്ദേഹം തന്റെ ഔദ്യോഗിക ജീവിതം മുഴുവനും ചെലവഴിച്ചത് TIFR സ്ഥാപനത്തിൽ ക്വാണ്ടം തിയറിയുടെ പൊതുമേഖലയിലാണ്. ചിക്കാഗോ സർവകലാശാലയിൽ നിന്ന് RH ഡെവിറ്റ്സിന്റെ മാർഗനിർദ്ദേശത്തിലാണ് PhD കരസ്ഥമാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഇന്ത്യക്കകത്തും പുറത്തുമുള്ള സർവകലാശാലകളിലും വിവിധ സ്ഥാപനങ്ങളിലുമായി വിസിറ്റിംഗ് പ്രൊഫസറായി സേവനമനുഷ്ഠിക്കുകയും ക്വാണ്ടം ഫിസിക്സിന്റെ വിവിധ മേഖലകളിലും പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് സ്പേസ് കൈനറ്റിക്സിലും ശ്രദ്ധേയമായ സംഭാവനകൾ നൽകിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. പൂനെയിലുള്ള അന്തർദേശീയ സർവകലാശാല കേന്ദ്രത്തിൽ ആസ്ട്രോണമി, ആസ്ട്രോഫിസിക്സ് എന്നിവയെ ആസ്പദമാക്കി ഹോമി ഭാവ സീനിയർ ഫെലോഷിപ്പ് കരസ്ഥമാക്കിയിട്ടുള്ള അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ നിലവിലുള്ള പ്രവർത്തന മേഖല ഭാരതീയ ഗണിത ശാസ്ത്രത്തിന്റെ സാംസ്കാരിക ചരിത്രത്തിലാണ്. കാൽക്കുലസിന്റെ വികസനവുമായി ബന്ധപ്പെട്ട സാംസ്കാരിക വിഷയങ്ങൾ, വിശേഷിച്ച് സംഗമവിരാമ മാധ്യമങ്ങളുടെ സംഭാവനകൾ എന്നിവയിലാണ് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന്റെ ഇപ്പോഴത്തെ പ്രവർത്തനം.
We feel honored to have with us today the renowned academician and an eminent scholar, Professor P. P. Diwakar. As a former professor of physics at the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, he has an illustrious career. Owing to his expertise in the field of quantum theory, particularly in the space-time matrix, he has achieved worldwide recognition. As a pathfinder and an inquisitive scholar, he has made significant contributions to the field of quantum theory through his articles. Also, his recent interest in the cultural history of Indian mathematics was supported by the Homi Bhabha Senior Fellowship. We are elated to take this opportunity to invite the guest of honor, P. P. Diwakar sir, to deliver this year's Sree Sankara lecture. Sir would share with us his insights on the topic, the place of mathematics in the creation of India's cultural identity. We are very eager to listen to you, sir.
Sorry, I'm a nervous speaker, so I'm worried about things working well and so on and so on. Okay, seriously. So more seriously, I cannot convey to you how happy I am to be here for many, many reasons. Primarily because anything to do with Sankaracharya and anything to do with a university which in his name will try to propagate the intellectual and moral values that he held on to very strongly is something which I think in today's universities life in India we need very badly. So I'm very happy that I'm here. Okay. And secondly, I'm personally very pleased because for 2.5 years I had been out of the academic world. I was in a world consisting mostly of myself. So to come here, see, first of all, these wonderfully spirited young faces, whether they are singing songs or whether they just walking about, it pleases me honestly. I'm addicted to teaching and lecturing. From my very early days, it's been my great joy to meet young people younger than me at that time, and to convey to them what a wonderful life a life of the mind is. So I'm very happy to be here. Very privileged. Consider myself honored that the university here has asked me to speak in the name of Shankara. My talk is, from the title, you will think that it is very wide and fuzzily defined subject. It is to some extent because there has not been enough work in the context of Indian culture, with the place of mathematics in it. Because most people don't think of mathematics as culture. They think of it as something which you learn, which you're forced to learn when you're young, and then most people would like to forget what they learned as quickly as possible. That was not the tradition in India. The tradition in India is that whatever Shastra a young scholar chose to specialize in course of time, this early training included many essential and, what shall I say, inevitable set of topics. Of course, Sanskrit and Vyakaranam was part of it. So was Jyotisha and Ganita. It was part of the necessary toolkit of a young scholar. And the people who then specialized in Ganita, not all of them were very famous. There must have been thousands and thousands of people. We know maybe a few dozen as very famous, very well known. A few of them, maybe half a dozen, 10, of the highest level of attainment. And very many of them did various kinds of things connected with mathematics and astronomy, such as writing panchagas, such as preparing, letting people know when is a muhurta, when is a good time for you to undertake an important mission. So there must have been, it's some form or the other, very widespread in our lives. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is not so much about the role mathematics play in our daily life, what one might call technology and related uses of mathematics. But I will begin with something which is a good starting point, partly because it needs some pretty interesting slides, first of all, and also some pretty interesting relationship between sophisticated mathematics, in this case geometry, and our inner life, especially our spiritual life. Now, I apologize for the fact that the picture is turned sideways. That is because I'm not very good at manipulating computer programs. And these are diagrams which refuse to turn straight. I can turn them straight, they go back to being sideways. So it doesn't matter very much. What's important is that it's called the Baudhayana square. Now, Baudhayana was the author of one of the early Shulva Sutras. Shulva Sutras are texts concerned with the architecture, primarily, of building Vedic ritual platforms or structures connected with them. And this is part of the Kalpa Sutra, which we will come to in a minute. And very early in Baudhayana's, there are four well-known things, or four well-known Kalpa Sutras. Very early in Baudhayana's Kalpa Sutra, there is a description that actually tells us how to draw this figure. What is this figure? I say it's a square. How does one draw a square? Now, the actual way of doing it is, if I go away from here, people at the back, can you hear me? No. No, I wish I could give this lecture both in Malayalam and English. but I can't, so for various reasons. So what you see there is that there is a point O in the middle. Then there are these two lines, east-west and north-south, this way. What you want to do is to draw a square of which one side is aligned to the east-west, Prachi. The direction east is holy in Indian thinking, in Indian geometrical thinking and Indian architecture, because that is the direction from which the sun rose. So to do this, the actual detail of how it is drawn is not so important. What is important is that it is drawn the better square by drawing just circles. Just you can draw a clever set of circles, look at points where the circles intersect, and join them up, you get a square. The thing is, there are many ways of drawing this square, and there are variations in it, but they don't result in such a beautiful picture. The description of Balhaya, very good. So what's important is that this one is not only a deep geometrical truth, which is a result which is elevated to the position of a theorem in Vada's book, which says something about the way circles intersect and how geometry arises out of them. That is not the important thing. There are other ways of doing it. What is interesting is that what strikes you when you first look at it is that it's a very pretty picture. Okay, it's a little rosette or a floret created by drawing just circles and nothing else. Now, why is it important? Because square varies had to be constructed for some of the rituals, some of the Vedic rituals. And this is the way in which you make a square Vedic. And what does it depend on? It depends on a profound geometrical truth, which says that when you have two circles intersecting, then there is a line which joins the centers of the two circles. There is a line which joins the 2 points where the circles meet one another. You draw them, you get a perpendicular pair of lines. That is the truth. And that is stated as a theorem in the intersection. Now, this was known to certainly, Aryabhata lived in 500 AD, roughly speaking. Baudhayana probably between 700 and 800 BC, which means more than 1,000 years earlier. So this is in Baudhayana. So he certainly knew it. But it actually goes back to another. Now I hope, I don't know how clear it is, but if you look at it, you will find that little rosette that came out of drawing those circles repeated in bands across like that, in several bands like that. And this is indented on a jar, earthen jar, found in Harappa in the 1920s by Sir John Marshall. So the Harappan people knew it very well, that if you draw circles, properly chosen circles and make them cut one another, then you will get pretty patterns. In fact, some extremely beautiful, sophisticated patterns you can generate in this way. Very, very beautiful things. Another example of the same pattern on a jar, which is from somewhere else, maybe Chanudaro or one of those less known places. So this is knowledge which goes back, well, let's say the Baudhayana lived around 800 BC. This is from 2500 BC. So the deep influence of geometry, in this case for decoration, where it is no other function, the deep impact geometry had on people's way of looking at their lives, using them to enrich their lives. It's a very, very old human tendency. You can see it in the 30,000-year-old, 40,000-year-old, 40,000-year-old wall paintings, wall etchings in various cultures, including in India. So this is what I call, this is secular use. This is secular. by the time the Vedic people understood what this is, and by the way, I said Prachi is a holy direction, and the Prachi itself is determined by another procedure described also by Althaina, which is much deeper than the suggestions normally made for how to determine the cardinal directions. For example, those of you who are familiar with Indus Valley civilization, especially the urban architecture of Indus Valley, the civilization in the big cities like Mohenjo-daro and Harappan, and places like Dholavira or Rakhigarhi, you will know that they believed in perpendicular architecture. Everything was lines which are cutting one another. Manhattan architecture, right? Manhattan streetscapes. How did they, and they generally in the north-south-east west direction, how did they do it? People used to speculate that the pole star played a role in that way. But of course, the pole star is visible only at night. And I would imagine that in 2500 BC, the nights would not have been very congenial for doing complicated work, drawing lines, because of, there's no light at night. It's pretty certain that they found the east-west by the solar shadow method, which I did not describe, I will not describe now. And that is now propagated from 2500 BC, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, to 800 BC, Baudhaina, to later Shudra Sutrakaras like Manava or Katyayana, maybe 300 BC. Then, as a mathematical theorem in Aryabhata, 580, then till now, if you want to build a temple, and if you can possibly make it orient towards the east, that's what you do. It's still the holy direction in India. So this is not very good. This is where I would have liked to explain how these street grids, the Manhattan grids, are made by the repeated use of these circles intersecting, cutting one another. We'll skip that. Now the Indus Valley people, they're very special people. You know, the full range of their sophistication. They're thinking both aesthetically and analytically are beginning to emerge now, because there is a group of scholars who have been looking at it, mostly not in India, mostly outside India, in France and the US particularly, and to some extent in Russia. And what we're learning today is something which currently will not be very fashionable. What we're learning today is that they had a very special culture, and for me, what's important for us today is that the geometric sophistication they showed in the slides I showed earlier did not end with just circles and making squares out of circles. Now, on top of that unicorn, the famous unicorn scene, you see a set of logograms, a set of or ideograms showing a sample of the script which they use to write these. And you can see that all of them have mirror symmetry. Virtually all of them. There's probably one exception. That if you put a mirror in the middle, what you see on the right is a reflection of what's seen on the left. It's called bilateral symmetry. So they were very sophisticated people, and there probably are many more points of continuity between the thinking of the Indus Valley people and of the Vedic people who replaced them in their own homeland. I mean, when the Vedic people came to India, settled in India, where they lived mostly in Western Punjab. Okay, that was a major part of the Harappan civilization. So there is this. Now we need geometry. You know, I use geometry because I can show some pretty slides. Now from now on, most of it will be text. The people in the back, I don't think you can read this. I'm sorry. I read it nicer if you had a bigger screen, but I don't think you will be able to read it. So I probably be speaking to people who are sitting in the vestry was. What's very important about understanding the Vedic culture is that they did not use writing. They probably did not think that writing was acceptable to their gods. They probably knew that other people wrote things, like, for example, the Iranians wrote things at that time. Then, to get a hand of what it is that what impact it had, what the absence of writing had on Vedic culture, I thought it's good to start with the fact there are 6 Vedantas. Okay, everybody knows their names, in particular, I'm not read them, of which 4 had strong links with the language. And the best way to understand the significance of language is to realize that these things have a very strong connection not with language in the abstract, but with the phonological aspects of language. Things to do with how things are sounded, how things are vocalized, how things are uttered. Like, for example, Shiksha, one of the Vedantas, is mostly about how to get the pronunciation of the aksharas correctly. Okay, the others are various other things, but the 2 exceptions from this linguistic connection are, of the 2 exceptions, Jyotisha is strongly connected with mathematics. We know that, everybody knows that, because that is what has grown into Indian mathematics later. The original thinking is present either in the Jyotisha Vedanta or in the Shilpa Sutra. And the Shilpa Sutra itself, the geometry text, is a part not of a linguistic or a scientific Sutra Vedanta, but of Kalpa Sutra, which is to do with rituals. And to make sure, and how to make sure that the rituals are performed correctly. So, from this position, I can neither read it nor illuminate it. Yeah. Now, all mathematics grew out of 2 well streams, the outflow of 2 well streams. One is geometry, the study of space and its properties, especially its symmetries of various kinds. The other is numbers. Okay? And the major part of my talk will be the relationship between numbers and other cultural artifacts. And in this study, we have no text to fall back upon. Unlike the geometric study, which we can go back to Shilpa Sutra and build up from there in the light of what happens later. The number system that we use today, measuring numbers by 10, or decimal number system, is very elaborately present in the earliest text that is survived in Indian history, Rigveda. Okay? And in this, the reason why we have to fall back upon Rigveda is that unlike geometry, which we can check off against the Shilpa Sutra texts, there are no texts devoted to numbers and their properties. So we have to fall back upon whatever text will give us some insight into it. And we are extremely lucky because the Rigveda the Rigveda has more than 2,000 number names in it. Okay? It is as though they are reveling, they are actually celebrating the discovery of a system of managing, obtaining numbers. And of these 2,000 words, the decimal paradigm, what I call the decimal paradigm, has 2 parts. One is that rather than you know what, when you write 2022, the year in which we are today, in this way, this is what it means. There are 2,000s in it, there are 0, 100s in it, and there are 2 10s in it, and there are 2 zeros in it. Okay. Now, because we have no symbols in the Regulating times, you have to find a way of conveying that this is what it consists of. 2022 is a number which, when broken down, has this form. So what they did was they understood the principle, but rather than placing them as 2202 in this order, they gave them names. So they had this Ekasthana, the place of the ones, the Dashasthana, 2, and then 100 there is nothing, and 1,000 there is 2. So what you do is, instead of giving symbols for numbers and ordering them by position, you now give them names and order them by the sequential, the sequence in time in which they are stated. This is, modern mathematicians will simply say the same principle, but 2 different presentations of the same principle. One in words and names, the other in symbols and positions. So the important thing, the lesson from the study of the number names in the Rigveda, by the way, I come to that in a minute. Let's see here. Yeah. Then, of course, the 2 operations, the plus and the product, the times symbol, they must be conveyed one way or the other, and that is grammatically done. And the Rigveda has the grammatical, also the evidence of the grammatical sophistication that made it possible. For example, adding numbers is no problem. You can just with the samasa, just keep conjoining the names of the numbers. And is the operating word for the operation that is being done with. Multiplication is somewhat more sophisticated, somewhat more complex. There are many ways in which it was conveyed in the Rigveda, and it is a fair amount of work to get to pull out the when it is addition and when it is multiplication. Mistakes have been made by various scholars from ancient times to modern times. I give you one example: the Aryabhata's great work, Aryabhatiya, is sometimes referred to as Aryashtashaka. That's because the significant last 3 chapters of Aryabhata, not the first is the summary of all the results, the Deepika part. But the other 3 together have 208 verses. Yeah. So the first book, can you hear me through this? The first operation is easy. It is just conjoining, nominal composition in English terminology. You can keep adding. The multiplication is much trickier, and there have been confusions. Aryashtashata, I said, in the Aryashtashata, a lot of people translate it as 800, Ashtashata, 800, in the verse in the meter Arya, or the work of Aryabhata. The fact, however, is that several people translated this 800 Ashtashata. And that is because they could not break the samasa down correctly. It's very simple. I mean, that's the kind of thing that will not happen here. I know. But people made this mistake, well-known people, very famous people. They made this mistake and caused a lot of trouble. And there are places where there is genuine difficulty in deciding whether something is to be added or multiplied. But it's in a work which I'm extremely proud of.
in a work in which I am extremely proud of, which is one of the only reference I have given here because I really am very proud of it. I have had the very great fortune of having a collaborator who was absolutely top class and having advisors who were also very, very good. And he took several, this thing is only about 30, 40 pages, but it took us 5 years of work. And in this, what is established beyond any reason, beyond any kind of doubt, is that the Vedic writers, the poets who composed the verses, composed the poems that are collected together in the 10 books of the Rig Veda, had a perfect mastery of the principles of decimal enumeration. So the mathematical validation of our understanding of decimal numbers comes from grammarians and poets. Okay, it doesn't come from detailed analysis. Certainly doesn't come from running a string of zeros and ones in a computer. It really comes from the application of the mind to genuinely sophisticated grammatical problems. That's how. So that's when I first realized that there is a tremendous symbiosis between mathematics and grammar, mathematics and language in general, and not only that, this symbiosis, in my view, grew out of the concerns of the people, of the sages who composed these things at about the same time. And there are, this is an interesting problem in historical reconstruction. So perhaps people won't mind being a little bored. I'll say what the issue is. The issue is the issue is how do we know? First of all, there is these 2,000 numbers in the Rig Veda, of which a few hundred, maybe 400, 450 of them. 450 of them are 450 of them are compound numbers, that is, things which are not 0 to 9 or 10, 20, 100. Because those are what I call atomic numbers, for which you give names which are completely arbitrary. Because, for example, if I say Eka, Dvi, 3, etc., up to Nava, I don't care what those names are. I go and name them after politicians, as long as everybody agrees that one means Narendra Modi. That is the name for one. Okay, you could say that. Like, for example, you could say Moti Shah, that would be 12. So that kind of. So the once it is understood that the numbers, the names for numbers are as arbitrary as the symbols for numbers. Once that is understood, then if you want to combine them into a language of numbers, into something which conveys true meanings unambiguously, then you have to use grammar. Okay? So now the thing is up to 10, 100, 1,000 also have to be your names. We have Dashasata Sahasra, and the Rig Veda has the highest power of 10 is Ayuta, 10,000. Highest number is 90,000. So, Navatim Sahasra, I think that is the word. Navatim Sahasra, that's the form in which it comes. However, you can say, but this is supposed to be descended from a thing called the Proto-Indo-European. Proto-Indo-European now, it's a very fashionable subject. Lots of people have been writing lots and lots of papers. Most of them are by and large correct, but may not be in detail. Now, in Proto-Indo-European, you can look at the names of numbers, especially the names of powers of 10. And the reconstructed numbers are the same, pretty much, with well-known, with well-accepted rules of transformation of sound from one language to another, like Desha, Deka, etc. Then Shata, Senatu, Shatam, etc. Now, when you come to 1,000,
there is a very interesting phenomenon because in India it's Sahasra. Okay. And some of my friends, great scholars of Sanskrit, tell me, unlike Dasha and Shata, which had no other meaning except as significators of numbers, Sahasra has a meaning. Sahasra is that which possesses power. Sahas. It's according to somebody I know, superiors. And so, at that time, it was considered to be a powerful number, a very big number. And Ayuta reinforces that because Ayuta means Ayuta. Yuta is the past participle of youth, yoga. So Ayuta means the unbounded number. So it's clear, Sahasra, Ayuta is a sequence which is growing with use, that is, as we need more and bigger numbers, then we invent names for them with some semantic significance, whereas Shata and Dasha have no semantic significance, except as symbols representing 100 and 10. So pi, I can ask now, pi, what is the word for Sahasra in pi in Proto-Indo-European? If you look at what is known about those things, you find there are two traditions. There is the Greek thousand. In Greek, all Greek, the thousand is kiloi. In Latin, it is mille. The reason why we can reconstruct Proto-Indo-European names for most things, especially numbers, is that all the daughter languages have words, the descendant languages have words for these ideas which sound very similar because the languages are to begin with phonetic before they were written down. However, the Greek and the Latin word for thousand have nothing in common. And neither of them has anything in common with the Northern European tradition of the name thousand. So the case that can be made is that these names, kiloi, mille, thousand, etc., are names which appeared after the divergence of the original Proto-Indo-European into separate languages depending on geographical location. You know, if you in the old days, transport being what it was, if you are confined to a certain space, changes that take place will not be transmitted very easily to other places. So it's very natural for Italians and Greeks to come to different origins for the words for thousand. So in India it is Sahasra. So and there is no 10,000 in Proto-European because there are no old Greek and there are various convenience words for them, but not what we need. So that's what it is. So, I think it is. I have to go a little faster. You know, it's very difficult to stop talking about this subject for me because I find it absolutely fascinating to try and see, reconstructed what people knew, how they handle their knowledge systems, how they handle the accumulating knowledge on an incredible scale, incredibly vast scale. Now, it's very zero. I'm not going to say very much because it's generally, people always say, "Oh, Shunya, that is a great contribution we have made to the world of mathematics." That contribution is nothing, Shunya. I actually don't think so. What the greatest contribution is the abstract structure of measuring numbers by 10, the decimal number system, the decimal paradigm. Once it is given in oral languages, oral number systems, we don't need a zero. It's very easy. It takes a little time to explain why we don't need it. We can do arithmetic without zero. But if you write things down, then you must have a zero because when you must say when a certain position is empty. And if you don't write something to indicate that there is a gap, people will think there is no gap, that there is nothing in between. So 10 and 100 will be the same symbol if you didn't have a symbol for zero. 301 and 311 will be the same. 301 and will be the same as 31. So you have to be careful. So that is the reason why. That is the reason why there is no zero, despite Panini's lopa. Despite Panini's lopa, there was no zero in India till Pingala. Pingala's maybe second century BC, something like that. And Pingala's zero is very definitely the number zero, there is no doubt about it, because of the context in which it comes. And it's called Shunya. But a written zero doesn't come before 400 AD. And just about the same time, the first mention of a symbol for zero occurs in a literary work, in Suvantu's Vasaragota. I have not seen the text, but I've read a great deal about it because it's a fascinating question. Why is the writer, the dramatist, suddenly interested in the symbol for the zero? He calls it Shunya Bindu. And the reason why he calls Shunya Bindu zero is that the zero was in fact a dot. It was a Bindu. There they are. This manuscript also from around 400 AD. Akshari manuscript. And it's lots of zeros, and not all of them are zeros, some of them have other meanings, but that's not important. Many of them are real mathematical numerical zeros. Far more interesting, in fact deeply intriguing, is the notion of infinity in mathematics. How much time do I have? I didn't look at my watch when I started. I had another. Huh? But, so, how much more now? Maybe
another 20 minutes.
Huh? 20 minutes, I'll make it half an hour. Immediately. No, maybe only 20 minutes, but we'll see. Okay, this is. So the thing is, the idea that there was no end to numbers, that if you start counting, or if you start taking a number and increase it by the factor of 10, multiply by 10, then you get to no end. It's an endless process, and that was recognized very early. And also, people worried about how to handle this very sophisticated problem. Problem is, how do you handle something which doesn't have an end? Which is not finite in extent. There is a very, very nice article by Professor Sharma, S.R. Sharma, in one of those Delhi publications, in which I found this list of incantations from Taittiriya Samhita. Taittiriya is the very rich in number law. If you read it, and as I said, since you don't have a textbook, you have to read things from wherever you can get there. And one of the very rich sources is Taittiriya. After the Veda, the next most important thing. In this, there are lists of powers of 10. So we will begin by saying these are counts, ways of counting the number of offerings you make in a sacrifice. So you start with 10, then it will go to 100, then it will go to 1,000, and then you go up to 1 followed by 18 zeros, 19 zeros. And that number has a name in the Taittiriya Samhita. It's called Loka, the whole world. Clearly, they knew that they were hitting the boundaries. What do we do next? But it doesn't end there. You can multiply Loka by 10. What do you get? And then we would say something, words like Sankhya, uncountable. You cannot count it. But more interestingly, there is a series of 7 or 8 sequences in which you don't go to very big numbers. You start by as I said here. They take a Smai Swaha, then it will say Prigya Swaha, then it will say Panchapya Swaha. Skip one, go on. Then 99, then you will say Shataya Swaha, 100. Then you will end Sarvasmai Swaha. That is, you call, you're now saying that, beyond 100, I can go on. But I cannot do it because of finiteness of time period. So I will say, all right, hail to all Sarvasmai Swaha. Hail to for that Swaha translation in Yogis. Then there are many such, the Chaturbhya Swaha, Ashtabhya Swaha, it goes on, and then when it comes to 100, it will followed by Sarvasmai Swaha. For me, that is an indication that they were frustrated. They didn't know what to do. They knew that it doesn't end there. So this problem is a central problem of Indian mathematical philosophy, in the sense that it was not properly solved even till very late. And it was actually solved satisfactorily by Sankaracharya Madhava, because he could not do calculus without solving that problem. I'll come to that very quickly. Okay. It had the reason why infinity particularly caused confusion, we can follow by looking at what Bhartrhari said about numbers and about language. Now, Bhartrhari, whether you will classify him as a linguist, a cognitive scientist, or a philosopher of language, I don't know. He was all elusive to me. And I have read the first conduct of this Bhakti, and I found it incredibly stimulating because the man has tremendous imagination. Okay, and the text, of course, in the style of those days, does not explain everything. So you can put your thoughts into his mind and have fun. The thing as far as this particular thing is concerned, please read this. It says that just as Adi Sankhya determine all numbers by their rearrangement in some form or the other, there are words which are in the same role as Adi Sankhya, which have to be intuited, which we cannot explain any further. Like, for example, Devadatta. This what? When a sentence says that Devadatta is cooking something or the other, what Devadatta stands for is not, Devadatta is not the gift of God. Devadatta is not one particular person who is called the gift of God. He is the masculine, the generic masculine, gender, singular, whatever, person in the nominative case. Okay. It's when you say Devadatta in this sentence, you know that what this stands for is A. You can call it A, as long as you understand that A is male, A is one, and that, yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. So this is, so here, linguistic philosophy has been very, very strongly influenced by the fact that in the early first numbers, as I said, plus if you have said all the other Dashans, Shata and so on and so forth, they have to be understood in a very specific way. Up to 9, you have to understand it as intuitively clear. That is, when you hear the sound now, you know it's 9. And what do you mean by 9? 9 is defined by a sequence of 9 objects, not an unrelated collection of 9 objects, but in the correct order. There must be 3, etc. So, this particular impact that Bhartrhari had was very critical. I think in my but Bhartrhari also had this other philosophy. I'm not I'm not talking of sport for several reasons, because I don't know it, I don't know very much about it, and I also don't know, I also don't think it's very critical for this. You know, how I perceive or how I cognize a certain set of ideas in my mind before uttering it, or how I do so after hearing it, it's not very critical for this particular topic. But what he says about the importance of Shabda. You notice that in these phrases, in these passages, the word is not called Pala, it is called Shabda. So I think more generally one should translate it as a package of sound, that is to say, not necessarily a word in the technical sense of having a meaning, but as a sequence of uttered sounds. Shabda in the sense in which we use it now most of the time. So most people translate Shabda as word, but I personally think it is not quite that. So the thing is, if you don't give it a name, it doesn't exist. You don't know what it is. So to know is to name something. Okay, then you would think that very quickly, when the problems of infinity arise, people will realize that it cannot be done. It cannot be done because an infinite set of objects cannot be given determinate names. You run out of names sooner or later. Even the words are infinite numbers. You won't have time to do it. And apparently, this is one of its insights. There are, in the description of the rituals, maybe Sudarshan will correct me, in the description of rituals, there are places apparently where it says, stop here. Okay. So Fritz used to tell me that's because they knew that they couldn't continue forever. So, you know, the notion of infinite time, infinite place, is very complicated. Now, have I? Yeah. Now, this is a linguistic version. The unending number, set of numbers is a linguistic version. And this is something, there is a fable in the Mahabhashya of Patanjali, in which he says that, you know, we have a tradition by which Brihaspati, the teacher of the gods, the guru of the gods, tried to teach Indra, who famously was bald-headed, not very smart guy, tried to teach him the structure of languages, of grammatical expressions, one by one, enumerating them, one after the other, after the other, after the other. Now, when he did that, of course, he says, after 1,000 years of the gods, they did not come to the end. They got nowhere. Okay. And then he said that the problem of infinity, he didn't say the problem of infinity, then he said, so what we need to do is to have some rules, general and particular. It's very careful, very clear. We need general and particular rules in order to be able to convey the sense, total sense of a language to another person, to teach somebody. And that's because a language is also potentially infinite. There is no limit to the number of words that you can have. So, the question is, what did he do about it? What did he not do? Finally, wrote a book called Ashtadhyayi, which is in fact a collection of general and particular rules. Okay? There is no enumeration in mind. For me, I don't know Chinese grammar very well. I try to read some secondary text to get a feeling for what is structurally interesting in Chinese. My conclusion is that all the kaitas and so on and so forth, the things that get very complicated, very intricate, but very precise at every stage. Underlying all these things is a central theme, a central scaffold on which everything is built, the bedrock on which the intricate structure of the Ashtadhyayi is based. And that is the thing which modern mathematicians rediscovered in the 19th century. It's called set theory in modern mathematics. The idea is that there are two ways of doing it. Actually, there are. Let me deal with this, what I call resolution one. How to resolve this conflict between finite means and infinite possibilities. That is really what it is. Infinite possibilities, but we have to understand them by finite means. And the recursion is what I described there. That is to say, you don't try to enumerate anything. What you do is think of something which is any one of the number, any one of the sequence, any element of the sequence. Then you say, how do I go to the next element of that sequence for any such time? If I can do it for a sufficiently general choice, then I don't have to say 2 plus 1 is 3, 3 plus 1 is 4, and so on and so forth. I only have to say n plus 1 is the number next to n. One statement provided by n, I mean the set of all numbers. This is the idea of set theory. In fact, and this I think, I've written it there, this I think is what the Taittiriya Samhita people were trying to say. Sarva, meaning it doesn't matter whether you're going from 4 to 8. Okay. Go from any multiple to the next multiple of 4 is what you do. So that is why when you offer, bricks or whatever, in a sacrifice, you will say, well, end everything with Sarva Smaha. So grammar is full of recursive methods. I don't have to say. I mean, the simplest example is nominal composition. And you and you and you and you and you and you. I can go on forever, and I can add words forever because as long as there is infinite supply of words, I cannot possibly come to an end. So what you do now is precisely the same thing. You say, all right, let W be a generic word. Suppose I want to list words. Suppose, Indra was smart enough to do this. Let W be a generic word. The next word is do this to W. A certain procedure to W. And if you choose your, you get the idea. And this is, recursive methods are everywhere in Indian culture, everywhere. I mean, when I first read Panchatantra, fortunately I read it very late in my life, after I had begun to think about these things. We all know the Panchatantra stories, but I actually read, there is a new translation, it's about 20 years old. The Sankaracharya, it's generic translation, wonderful. The verses are translated with the same lack of reverence as the original. So, if you read Panchatantra, that's full of recursion. There is a story in which a mouse will go somewhere and listen to somebody else. Let's say, but why telling the story? Oh, then this is like what happened to my friendly decor. They call it the story. So, stories embedded one with the other. And of course, in the presence of Professor Narayan, I don't have to say, Kudiyatam is a very, very good example of recursion. Nirvahanam, what is it? Nirvahanam is just, embedded elements of a certain structure within a certain similar structure. So there, these things are, of course, like everywhere else. The clearest examples are always in mathematics, and in particular, in the mathematics of Tera, the mathematics of the school founded by Madhav in Kodaiur. Thanks for reminding us. In Kodaiur, in that the power of the method of recursion is used with such incredible sophistication. I mean, the proofs that they give for results which are very poorly derived by Isaac Newton or Leibniz, for example. It's amazing. There are two key elements in the work of it. They turn recursion into a powerful and sophisticated and precise mathematical proof. The other is the thing that we just talked about before, a total mastery of the meaning of infinity. The second method is what I call categorization. Categorization means take the set of all things that you want to deal with, okay, never mind how many things there are, finite, infinite, whatever, and divide them into subsets, depending on some common property they may have, or some common activity you want to carry with them, or some common transformations you want to make of them, turn them into subsets. Okay. Then, if you do that, you can make your statements concerning, there are these things which make them have common, something in common, an application of a law, or a set of functions that they insert, so on and so forth. You make rules for the subsets as a whole, depending on what these commonalities are. So, as long as the number of subsets is finite, the statement that you make, the proposition that you make about the whole set can be reduced to a finite number of statements about the subsets, because the subsets are finite in number. Each subset may have an infinite number of objects. Like, for example, Sandhya I've written down there. Any word beginning with a consonant ending in A, and any word beginning with a vowel E, join them together in Sandhi, I know that the infixes will become A. Similarly, R plus O will become O. So you don't have to say Ida plus Utkala is Ilotkala. You don't have to say, you don't have to list anything. Simply say, take any word ending in A, take any word beginning with U, join them together, Sandhi tells you it should be O. So Paninian methods are strictly categorical. Paninian methods are strictly categorical. And this is the basis of all modern mathematics. There is no modern mathematics without what this is actually elementary axiomatic set theory. Without elementary set theory, without sophisticated set theory, modern mathematics doesn't exist, because there is a bridge connecting the two, and it's called formal logic. So without formal logic, there is no foundation for modern mathematics, even though there are questions about the validity of these foundations. Okay, carry on. Okay, at least those not sitting not far away can read this. Yeah, and Panini, of course, not only divided big sets into subsets, big subsets of a small number, he also used, to make statements about those subsets, he used what people these days call meta-linguistic markers. Okay? That is, designate a certain list, a certain set of things and similar things by suffixes of various kinds, like suffix, such, or it, or in. So you can make statements about it. Then I don't have to say these apply to all. I know because he has told you. Okay. Number names of a certain kind, like for example, you say, when 2, 3, or 4 come before a certain number, this is what they should do with it. And you can say 2, 3, and 4 belong to a set, apply to that. Now, actually, in the 2, 3, 4 case, he actually says that 2, 3, and 4. We actually listen because it's small number. But large things, like what you do, Sandhi rules, for example, elementary and completely general. There is no fighting with them. Amazing, no? Take a living language like Vedic Sanskrit or the Sanskrit of Aryabharta of that time. To take that language and take it, make it a systematic science of it, which it's mind-boggling. I still think, to think that it can be done before you do it. Just to have the courage to do that. It's incredible. I am completely in agreement with people like Cardona or Stahl or people like that who say the greatest scientists who ever lived. Amazing. Very quickly, this is very, very concrete and very down to earth, very technical. Pingala wrote, there is a reason why I put it up there. Pingala wrote this thing called Chandra Sutra, and the purpose was to, he describes the meters then currently popular, including Vedic meters. Then in the last chapter 8, I think, he set down certain general propositions. And these general propositions will be of no interest to the average US or the average poet, because these are questions of a very abstract kind. Like I have mentioned here, first you define, basically basic fact, two mantras. There are two kinds. First of all, it's very funny name. When he says la, he means all the good syllables, all, the set of all, the subset of all the good syllables. When he says ga, he means the subset of all good syllables. Okay? So now you can state everything in terms of la and ga. You don't have to say guru like this. So this is very, very categorical. It's very funny. Then he asks the following questions. He asks 5 questions, these 5 affairs, of which the most difficult is the last one. How many meters can you construct? A meter is, I think, for the purpose of this discussion, a meter consists of one pada, 1 foot, a note that stands of several of them. So it is all determined by the positions of the car, the distribution of guru and lagu in a given line of a fixed number of syllables. Fixed number of syllables. So he says, so given that number n, fixed number of syllables, how many distinct vrittas can I construct? How many distinct meters can I construct? And this leads to a problem which is not very difficult to solve, but it actually is 2 multiplied by n times, by itself n times. Then he asks a question. Suppose I also say not only the length, not only how many total number of syllables there are, but also how many of them are lagu or guru, fixed. That is, for example, how many meters are there of length 10, total number of syllables 10, of which 6 are lagu? The answer to this question are numbers which are called binomial coefficients. And binomial coefficients were treated in Europe seriously in the 17th century. We're talking of the 3rd century BC. And the way he does it, 2 or 3 places where the methods are truly categorical. One of them is this, the division into lagu and guru is categorical. The other is a place where it actually gets a certain procedure. In the intermediate step, you get numbers which are either even or odd, also binary, like guru and lagu. And he says the set of results in which the answer is even, I will say green. I will name it my meta-linguistic marker, or in this case, mathematical marker, is 3. The odd things I will call shunya. Okay. Now, this is a very curious choice. One would have said 2 and 1 or 1 and 2 and so on. Says 2 and 0. Why is that? My view is that he was dazzled by the fact that there was no 0. I said in the oral tradition, you didn't need a 0. But by now we are in the 3rd century BC, and the Ashoka inscriptions are already there. The writing had come to India finally. Writing had come to Brahminic India, I should say. we don't know whether people wrote on cloth or things like that which disappear. So the fact that it coincided with the arrival of writing in India means what? It means that now we needed a zero. You couldn't do without a zero when you have numbers written. Now, actually, Brahmi numbers are a very, very subtle subject. We did not quite follow this very linear trajectory that I marked out, but we understand how they came about very well, very well. There is no longer any doubt. Till about 10 years ago, people didn't know what the logic behind the Brahmi numbers were. We know now. So, the subject makes a tremendous amount of progress. Now, of course, this is particularly simple. Now, the performing arts, 200 years later, Bharathamuni wrote Natyashastra. And there, of course, the problems are very much more complicated because already he had 4 talas, I think, Dhruta and Plutha at the end, and so on and so forth, plus the swaras of the melodies. So the combinatorial possibilities are very, very large. And that reached a very, very high level of sophistication in the following 1,000 years. It took 1,000 years. Like, for example, Charladeva's Sabila Ratmatra is a very rich source of combinatorial mathematics. And it's a very beautiful work done by people I know very well. Raja Sree and company. Raja is from here. It's very mathematical, but it really is, for those who can follow the mathematics, it's a very, very good account of this. Yeah, I'm coming to the end of my talk. Now this one, how did the mathematicians know? How did they convince themselves of the correctness of what they were doing, logically, and in terms of the results? How did they know that they were following a path which can be given permanent value as being truthful? Now, I have this general feeling that virtually all intellectual enquiries in India had one overriding final goal. The holy grail of intellectual concern in India was arriving at an understanding, arriving at what is considered Sat, truth, existing. So how did they know? How did they know this? In fact, Sat and Asat are words which occur very, very commonly in Indian mathematics. Aryabhatta himself calls, he has a reference to the ocean of. Yeah, he says Sat Asat Samudra. Sat Asat Samudra, the ocean of true and false knowledge. Then, in the same verse at the end, he says, Sat Jnanotama Ratnam, the true jewel, the true gems, the superior, the superb gem, the best of gems, which is true knowledge. Okay, so Aryabhatta was a very, very unusual person, rebellious in many ways. So this is Aryabhatta. Then there are many other places. So the search for Sat and Asat gave rise to much heartburn among Indian logicians and philosophers, because the question was, if I don't know how to demarcate a certain statement, a certain set of statements as Sat, how can I know what Asat means? What is its negation? I mean, there are examples from the writings of Indian logicians. What is a flower? What is the color of a flower which is not blue? And of course, the only correct answer is, which is not, no, sorry, that's not, doesn't end there. What is the color of a frog which is not blue? That is to say, what is the negation of blue? So in Western logic, after Aristotle, definitely, double negation is affirmation. Okay? Not in the same as yes, that is true. The Indians, of course, did not accept it. The reason for that is very simple, because Western Greek philosophers are very, very atomic in their thinking. That is to say, they reductionist people. That every complicated situation can be broken down into elementary components, and then it is true that which is does not have property A is the same as saying that they have the property not A. Okay. The Indians did not accept it, and the reason for that is the universal set. You say a subset having the property A, subset of what? Subset of every possible thing in the world. Subset, for example, numbers. Even numbers are subsets which are obtained by counting, dropping 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, and so on and so forth. Now it's already complicated because it doesn't end. It's infinite. But by the time Narayana got there, it had become, very tedious and detailed very quickly, because the beginning of Madhyamika is very simple. We don't Madhyama. Why Madhyama? Because we don't accept the two extremes, true or false. This, in fact, is not my make up thing. Here we mostly discussed it very well. Why Madhyamika is Madhyamika? It is Madhyamika because it does not want to accept that everything is, they think of all possibilities as a spectrum. Don't want only the two ends, the extremes, true or false. That is why it is legitimate now to ask, is a statement true or false? Both true and false? Neither true and false? The logical problem is from the general reductionist point of view, is that you cannot stop there. Because if I say this proposition, that a statement can be one of any four possibilities, call that statement A. I can ask this proposition A true. That is it correct to say that every statement has four possibilities? Then, of course, if I ask that question, I must say, if it is not true, so the statement A, which sets down the four possibilities, I can ask, is the statement A true, or not true, or neither, or both? Okay. And send us. There is a much worse problem of infinite regression than the one we have met before. So, for the mathematician, it's an absurd thing to say that there is possibility. Because what will the mathematician say? The mathematician says, if a set has both property A and the property not A, its negation, then that set must be empty. Because everything is, all whole numbers are either even or odd. If you say it is both even and odd, it's the whole set. If you say it's neither even nor odd, it's the empty set. So these things are very alive. I mean, modern common logic is still not completely solved these problems. The amazing thing for me is that starting with the Chatushkodi, the four-cornered set of linkages between possibilities, you arrive at Sree. That's very nice. I like it very much. So yeah. I want to say something about the last thing. So while I was looking at it, I tried to see, are there, Buddha of course has said many times, things like four possibilities. Is there an afterlife? Is the soul immortal? All kinds of questions. He said, yes, no, neither yes nor no, both yes and no, and so on and so forth. So then I was looking at these things, and I happened to be reading, I happened to be reading Lady Doniger's translation of a certain set of Rigvedic hymns. It's very beautifully translated. Whether it's faithful, I don't know. But it's very good, very good. If you're faithful, who can say what is faithful, what is not faithful? Because you can read into them anything you like, anything that resonates in your mind. So I was looking at Nasadiya Sutta. And then I said, but I know somebody who wrote about Nasadiya Sutta, somebody who is very deep, and whom I respect enormously. This is Sree Sankara in a book on Shiva, and the presence of Shiva. There is a place where she talks about this Nasadiya Sutta. And she says, the uncreate, which is her name, which is a very evocative name for the mess before creator. Whatever it is, we don't know what it is. The uncreate, neither non-being is neither non-being nor being. Na asat is how it begins. The very first phrase in this is na asat, the negation of a negation, the double negation. And then the thing I realized later was that this is in book 10, 159. Book 10, point 5 says that the uncreate is both non-being and being. See, firstly, and later in 159 it says it's neither non-being nor being. So you have the full spectrum of the whole Narayana possibilities already there. All the Buddha possibilities already there. So it's a very, very, very beautifully complex subject. I mean, it's a lot of room for imagination, a lot of room for serious disciplined thinking, lots of room for scholars to get into it. This I'll skip. Okay, it led to problems in mathematics. It led to problems in mathematics because certain things couldn't be proved without this binary logic. So I end with this last slide, which you can read. But oh, you were shot again. Somebody has to stop me. So you see, I say, I never said, Satladat Jnana Samudra, Samudridam, Brahmana Prasadaya. This Brahman is Brahman, not Brahma. It is the Godhead, or the principle of the universe. They call it the whole principle of the universe. Then it ends by Satnana Punaratna, Maya Nimatna, Sumati Nava. By the force of my own, by the bolt of my own intelligence. Okay. And that's what Sankara said. Sankara said in his one of the slides, I think in one of the Upadesh of Sanskrit, it says that Tat is the same as Sat, and Sat is the same as Atma. Okay. So on that note, I thank you very, very much. And as I said, one way to stop me is to ask questions. Nobody asks questions. Yeah. Once again, for this very, very happy experience that I've had today. Any questions now? No, people are impatient. Make it quick. Yeah.
പ്രധാന വിഷയത്തിലല്ല ചോദ്യം. പ്രധാന വിഷയത്തിലല്ല ചോദ്യം.
ഇതിനെ പറ്റിയ
പറഞ്ഞു വന്നപ്പോ സ്വാഹ എന്നുള്ളത് ട്രാൻസ്ലേറ്റ് ചെയ്തതുകൊണ്ട് സംസാരിച്ചോ തോന്നി.
I don't know, yeah, I'm not sure.
സർവസ്മൈ സ്വാഹ എന്നുള്ളത്
Sarvasmai Swaha, hey, എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് ശരിയാണോ?
അതാ ശരിയാണോ അതോ ഇരിക്കട്ടെ, അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞോ, അങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ വേറൊന്നും ഐഡിയ കിട്ടിയതെന്ന്.
I was quoting Keith's translation of criteria. Yeah, he says, hey to 1,000, or hey to 100.
അല്ലാതെ രസകരമായിട്ടുണ്ടാവും ചോദിച്ചോ.
I wish. Yeah, but what I think is that for me, it's like those, Ekasmai Swaha or Chaturbhiha Swaha, Ashtabhiha Swaha, and so on up to 96 and 100, Sataya Swaha, Sarvasmai Swaha.
സർവസ്മൈ എന്നുള്ളത് വളരെ വളരെ രസകരമായിരുന്നു. സർവാംഗത്ത് സർവനാമ ശബ്ദത്തെ എടുത്തത് ബ്യൂട്ടിഫുൾ ആയിരുന്നു.
Yeah. No, but up to then, I have thought of it as, there are these things called numbers. Okay, and as I said, the Vedic seers understood very well what they were doing, because what you see in the Veda is a perfect decimal number system, except that it is in words. So, no, one last sentence I say, and then I felt that this playing with words, drop one, count every odd number, then drop three. You will say, Tribhiha Swaha, and so on and so forth. What they were doing was to try to make sense of this thing which is mysterious and powerful, in the same way they were trying with Pratishakyas. Okay? That is to say, they were absolutely fascinated by the power of the sound. Absolutely fascinated. Not only is Lord a goddess, every meter, every vrita is divine. Every geometric figure is divine, of course, because it's connected to the ritual. So for me, this was an attempt to tame the set of all numbers. And they realized that it's not any that they are what they are. So that's why, and everything is served. Yeah, Jolu.
വളരെ രസകരമായിരുന്നു എന്നുള്ളൊരു നിരീക്ഷണമാണ്. അതായത് അവസാനം പറഞ്ഞു നിർത്തിയത് ഭാവാഭാവം, നെഗേഷൻ, അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് ഒരുപാട് ചർച്ച
Bhava is a wonderful example. I wish I had written it down, because Bhava says exactly the same thing. Okay? Existence and non-existence.
അത് നെഗേഷന്റെ നെഗേഷൻ അത് എന്താണെന്നുള്ളതിനെ കുറിച്ച് പല അഭിപ്രായങ്ങളുണ്ട്, ഒരുപാട് ചർച്ചകൾ ഉണ്ടായിട്ടുണ്ട്.
I can imagine. See, I am an amateur. I don't do that.
നന്നായിട്ടോ അതിൽ കൊണ്ട് നിർത്തിയത് വളരെ ഗംഭീരമായിട്ടാണ്.
Thank you. So I follow my nose. It takes me somewhere. Sometimes I find myself up to my nose in water and I get lost. But when things get clarified, it is a tremendous joy. And if I can share it with you, I will do it and later.
Thank you for imparting this knowledge to us, sir. By introducing the nuances in the relation between mathematics and India's cultural identity, you have enlightened us. We now invite all the dignitaries to kindly occupy the chairs on the dais.
I'm very happy to see Subaresh. Yeah, he came on. I'm very happy. Practical. Big screen. You go to have എനിക്ക് മനസ്സിലാകാത്ത നിങ്ങളോട് മനസ്സിലാക്കി കേട്ടിട്ടില്ല. No, I find it very fascinating. This questions, because unlike cultures of very soon nations began.
ഇന്നത്തെ മുഖ്യ പ്രഭാഷണം നടത്തിയ ബഹുമാന്യനായ പ്രൊഫസർ പി ദിവാകരൻ സാറിന് സർവകലാശാലയുടെ സ്നേഹോപഹാരം സമർപ്പിക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ പ്രൊഫസർ എം.വി. നാരായണനെ സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
Yes. This is a painting by Sneha Lakshmi. It's not a painting, it's a medium woodcut print in an enamel paint. She is a student of the Fine Arts Department.
Very pleased. Very pleased. Very happy. Do I know her?
That's right.
Yes. That's wonderful. I'm very pleased. Very good.
അടുത്തതായി എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണമാണ്. അക്കാദമിക് പ്രോഗ്രാമുകളിൽ ഏറ്റവും മികവ് തെളിയിച്ച വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കായി ഏർപ്പെടുത്തിയ വിവിധ എൻഡോമെന്റുകളാണ് ഇവിടെ വിതരണം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സർവകലാശാലയിൽ ആകെ 24 എൻഡോമെന്റുകളാണ് നിലവിൽ ഉള്ളത്. അതിൽ 15 എണ്ണം വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കുള്ള ക്യാഷ് അവാർഡാണ്, 9 എണ്ണം പ്രഭാഷണമാണ്. ഇന്നത്തെ 2020-21 എൻഡോമെന്റ് ആണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഇവിടെ വിതരണം ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സമാദരണീയനായ പ്രൊഫസർ വി രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാറാണ് ഇന്നത്തെ എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണം നിർവഹിക്കുന്നത്. നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയിലെ വിദ്യാസാന്നിധ്യമായിട്ടുള്ള സാറിനെ ഈ വേദിക്ക് പരിചയപ്പെടുത്തേണ്ട ആവശ്യമില്ല. എങ്കിലും സാർ ഇപ്പോൾ ന്യായ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ അഡ്ജന്റ് ഫാക്കൽറ്റിയാണ്. അധ്യാപനം ഒരു ജീവിത സഭയായി ആചരിച്ചു വരുന്ന ഭട്ട് സാർ സൗമനസ്യത്തിന്റെ ഉദാത്തമായ മാതൃകയാണ്. സംസ്കൃത സർവകലാശാലയിലെ വേദാന്ത വിഭാഗത്തിലെ മുൻ പ്രൊഫസറും ഇന്ത്യൻ മെറ്റാഫിസിക്സ് ഫാക്കൽറ്റി ടീം അക്കാദമിക് കൗൺസിൽ മെമ്പർ, ശാസ്ത്ര സംവർദ്ധിനി സെന്റർ ഫോർ ട്രഡീഷണൽ ലേണിംഗ് സെന്ററിന്റെ ഓണററി ഡയറക്ടർ എന്നീ ചുമതലകൾ വഹിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. കൂടാതെ 2019 സംസ്കൃത ഭാഷയുടെ സമഗ്ര സംഭാവനയ്ക്കുള്ള ഇന്ത്യ ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ ബഹുമതിയും അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് ലഭിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. എൻഡോമെന്റ് വിതരണം ചെയ്യുന്നതിനായി രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഭട്ട് സാറിനെയും അവാർഡ് ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങുന്നതിനായി ഇനി പേർ വിളിക്കുന്ന വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെയും ക്ഷണിക്കുകയാണ്. എൻഡോമെന്റ് വാങ്ങാൻ എത്തിയിട്ടുള്ള വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾ മുന്നോട്ട് പേര് വിളിക്കുന്നതനുസരിച്ച് പെട്ടെന്ന് തന്നെ വാങ്ങി ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങണമെന്ന് അഭ്യർത്ഥിക്കുകയാണ്. ആദ്യം പ്രൊഫസർ എ ബാലകൃഷ്ണ വാര്യർ മെമ്മോറിയൽ എൻഡോമെന്റ് ആണ്. എൻഡോമെന്റ് 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ ബിരുദാനന്തര ബിരുദ അവസാന വർഷ പരീക്ഷയിലെ മലയാള വിഭാഗത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും മികവ് പുലർത്തിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥിക്ക് നൽകുന്ന അവാർഡാണ് ഇത്. ഈ അവാർഡിന് അർഹയായത് അനുശ്രീ KC, ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റ് ഓഫ് മലയാളം, കാലടി മുഖ്യകേന്ദ്രം. രണ്ടാമത് CM വിഷ്ണു നമ്പൂതിരി ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ് 2020 എൽഫിൽ അവസാന വർഷ പരീക്ഷയിലെ സംസ്കൃതം സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും മികവ് പുലർത്തിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥിക്ക് നൽകുന്ന ഏറ്റവും ശ്രീമതി കീർത്തന പി സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം കാലടി മുഖ്യ കേന്ദ്രം. CM വിഷ്ണു നമ്പൂതിരി ഏറ്റവുമെന്ന് ശ്രീമതി കീർത്തന സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം കാലടി മുഖ്യ കേന്ദ്രം. അടുത്തത് VR വെങ്കടേശൻ മെമ്മോറിയൽ ഏറ്റവുമെന്ന് 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ BA അവസാന വർഷ പരീക്ഷയിലെ സംസ്കൃത വിഭാഗത്തിന്റെ മുൻ സ്ഥാനത്തുള്ള വിദ്യാർത്ഥിക്ക് നൽകുന്ന ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. ഇത് നേടിയിട്ടുള്ളത് പൗർണമി ഉണ്ണികൃഷ്ണൻ സംസ്കൃത വ്യാകരണ വിഭാഗം കാലടി മുഖ്യ കേന്ദ്രം. അടുത്തത് VR വെങ്കടേശ്വർ മെമ്മോറിയൽ ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. 2020 MA അവസാന വർഷ പരീക്ഷയിലെ സംസ്കൃത വിഭാഗത്തിൽ മികച്ച വിദ്യാർത്ഥിക്ക് നൽകുന്ന ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. അതിന് അർഹയായത് സൂര്യ ഗോപിനാഥിക്ക് സംസ്കൃത ജനറൽ വിഭാഗം കൊയിലാണ്ടി പ്രാദേശിക കേന്ദ്രം. അടുത്തതായി MS മേനോൻ മെമ്മോറിയൽ ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ ഒന്നാം സെമസ്റ്റർ MA സംസ്കൃതം സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും മികവ് പുലർത്തിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥിക്ക് നൽകുന്ന ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. ഇത് ഒരേ ഗ്രേഡ് വന്നിട്ടുള്ള 4 വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുണ്ട്. സ്നേഹ ദിനേശ് സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം, മൃണാളിനി ഷൺവി പീറ്റർ സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം, ആര്യരാജ് ബി സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം, ശ്രീപാർവതി SB സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം. വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളെ ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു. വരാത്ത കുട്ടികൾക്ക് പിന്നീട് നൽകുന്നതായിരിക്കും. അടുത്തത് പ്രൊഫസർ എൻ ഗോപാലപിള്ള മെമ്മോറിയൽ ഏറ്റവുമെന്ന് 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ BA സംസ്കൃത വിഭാഗത്തിൽ ഏറ്റവും മികച്ച മാർക്ക് നേടിയവരും സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യത്തിൽ ബിരുദത്തിന് തുടർന്ന് പഠിക്കുന്നതുമായ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്ക് നൽകുന്ന ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. ഇത് ലഭിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത് ലക്ഷ്മി കെ രാജൻ സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗം കാലടി മുഖ്യ കേന്ദ്രം. അടുത്തത് PA സുബ്ബരായ പട്ടർ മെമ്മോറിയൽ ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ BA സംസ്കൃതത്തിലെ 5 വകുപ്പുകളിൽ 5ാമത്തെ സെമസ്റ്ററിൽ മുൻ സ്ഥാനത്തുള്ള വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്ക് നൽകുന്ന അവാർഡാണ്. സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ അശ്വതി KV, സംസ്കൃത വേദാന്ത വിഭാഗത്തിലെ പാർവതി ഹരി, സംസ്കൃതം വ്യാകരണ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ശ്രീലക്ഷ്മി PK, സംസ്കൃത ന്യായ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ഗ്രീഷ്മ BG, സംസ്കൃതം ജനറൽ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ സൂര്യബാബു. അടുത്തത് പണ്ഡിറ്റ് PS സുബ്ബരാമ പട്ടർ ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. പണ്ഡിറ്റ് PS സുബ്ബരാമ പട്ടർ ഏറ്റവുമെന്ന് 2020 വർഷത്തിലെ MA സംസ്കൃതത്തിലെ 5 വകുപ്പുകളിൽ പ്രവേശനം ലഭിക്കുന്നതിന് ബിരുദ പരീക്ഷയിൽ ലഭിച്ച മാർക്കിൽ ഏറ്റവും ഉയർന്ന മാർക്ക് നേടിയ വിദ്യാർത്ഥികൾക്കുള്ള ഏറ്റവുമെന്നാണ്. സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗത്തിൽ നിന്ന് ലക്ഷ്മി കെ രാജൻ, സംസ്കൃത വ്യാകരണ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ പൗർണമി ഉണ്ണികൃഷ്ണൻ, സംസ്കൃത വേദാന്തത്തിലെ അജി ചന്ദ്രൻ, സംസ്കൃതം ജനറൽ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ഗായത്രി സി, സംസ്കൃതം ന്യായ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ഗോപിക S. അടുത്തത് ഡോക്ടർ എസ് രാജശേഖരൻ ഗോപാലാണ്. സാർ ഇവിടെ ഏർപ്പെടുത്തിയ സാർ നമ്മുടെ തെരഞ്ഞെടുത്ത വിഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ നിന്നും ഏറ്റവും മികച്ച PhD പ്രബന്ധത്തിൽ നൽകുന്ന എൻറോൾമെന്റ് ആണ്. ഇതിന് അർഹയായിട്ടുള്ളത് സംസ്കൃത സാഹിത്യ വിഭാഗത്തിലെ ശശികല കെ കാലടി മുഖ്യൻ. അടുത്തത് ഡോക്ടർ സുവർണ നാലപ്പാട്ട് എൻറോൾമെന്റ് ആണ്. തെരഞ്ഞെടുത്ത വിഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന് ഏറ്റവും മികച്ച PhD പ്രബന്ധത്തിൽ നൽകുന്ന എൻറോൾമെന്റ്. മലയാള വിഭാഗത്തിലെ CV സുധീർ കാലടി ഉഭയകേന്ദ്രം. ഇത് 2019-20 വർഷത്തെ. ഡോക്ടർ സുവർണ നാലപ്പാട്ട് എൻറോൾമെന്റിലെ 2020-21 വർഷത്തെ PhD പ്രബന്ധത്തിൽ നൽകുന്ന എൻറോൾമെന്റ്. ആശാ സുകുമാരൻ സംഗീത വിഭാഗം കാലടി മുഖ്യകേന്ദ്രം. അടുത്തത് ഡോക്ടർ കൃഷ്ണ സോമൻ എൻറോൾമെന്റ് ആണ്. To the girl student in the Department of Sociology, Social Work on the basis of her works in the field and social dynamics of women health, gender studies, mother and child health, works on marginalized classes. ഇതിന് അർഹയായിട്ടുള്ളത് സോഷ്യൽ വർക്ക് ഡിപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റിൽ നിന്ന് നമിത CA പയ്യന്നൂർ പ്രാദേശിക കേന്ദ്രം. സോഷ്യോളജി വിഭാഗത്തിൽ നിന്ന് അനില KT കാലടി മുഖ്യകേന്ദ്രം. ഡോക്ടർ എസ് രാജശേഖരൻ എൻറോൾമെന്റിന്റെ 2017-18-19 വർഷത്തെ കേഷ് പ്രൈസ് മുൻപേ നമ്മൾ ക്രെഡിറ്റ് കൊടുത്തിട്ടുണ്ട്. സർട്ടിഫിക്കറ്റ് കൊടുക്കാൻ ബാക്കിയുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. 2017 സൗമ്യ മുരുകേഷ് കമ്പാരിറ്റീവ് ലിറ്ററേച്ചർ സർട്ടിഫിക്കറ്റ് ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി ക്ഷണിച്ചു. ഡോക്ടർ എസ് രാജശേഖരൻ എൻറോൾമെന്റ് അർഹനായിട്ടുള്ള ഡോക്ടർ ബാബു CV ന്യായ വിഭാഗം. To the best PhD thesis at an all disciplinary university teacher. ഈ വിഭാഗത്തിലാണ് ഈ അവാർഡ്. അവാർഡ് ജേതാക്കൾക്ക് അഭിനന്ദനങ്ങൾ. ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ സർവകലാശാലയുടെ മുൻ PVC ആയിരുന്ന രാജശേഖരൻ സാറിന്റെ പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ ഇവിടെ സർവകലാശാലയ്ക്ക് വേണ്ടി ഏൽപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ചടങ്ങാണ്. അതിനുവേണ്ടി രാജശേഖരൻ സാറെ സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു. അത് ഏറ്റുവാങ്ങുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടി വൈസ് ചാൻസലറെ ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വൈസ് ചാൻസലർ ദേവളരെ, ഞാനിവിടെ വന്നു എന്നതിൻ്റെ ഒരു സൂചന എന്ന രീതിയിൽ എൻ്റെ 2 പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ ഇവിടെ പെട്ടെന്ന് കിട്ടിയ 2 പുസ്തകങ്ങൾ വൈസ് ചാൻസലറെ ഏൽപ്പിക്കാം എന്ന് കരുതുകയായി. അതിശയമായി കിട്ടിയ 2 പുസ്തകങ്ങളുടെ ആലുവയിൽ NBS യൂണിവേഴ്സിറ്റിയിലേക്ക് കിട്ടിയത് എൻ്റെ ആദ്യത്തെ പുസ്തകമായ കവിതയുടെ യാത്ര, അതുപോലെ കിങ്ങിണി തുമ്പി എന്ന ഒരു ബാലസാഹിത്യ കൃതിയാണ് കിട്ടിയത്. രണ്ടിനും കൂടുതൽ പ്രാധാന്യമുണ്ട്. ഒന്ന് എൻ്റെ ആദ്യത്തെ പുസ്തകം എന്നുള്ളത്, മറ്റത് എൻ്റെ 2 ചെറുമക്കളുടെ പേരുകൾ ഉൾക്കൊള്ളുന്ന പുസ്തകം എന്ന രീതിയിലാണ്. ഞാനത് നമ്മുടെ ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട വൈസ് ചാൻസലറെ ഏൽപ്പിക്കുകയാണ്.
Now we invite Dr. D.K. Bhavani, an ardent scholar in Nyaya philosophy, who is the general convener of Sankaracharya Jayanthi celebrations and the head of the department of Nyaya, to propose the vote of thanks.
Very good afternoon to all. Most respected our Vice Chancellor, Professor V. Narayanan sir, our distinguished Professor P.V. Divakaran sir, our beloved Professor V. Ramakrishna Bhatt sir, Registrar V. Gopalakrishnan sir, CDT members, Manipavan sir, and Shashidharan sir, other distinguished personalities, head of the departments, teaching and non-teaching staff from inside and outside universities, the researchers and my dear students. I would like to thank all the honorable delegates who blessed us with their presence. I am also very much thankful to all program committee members, especially for our Satyan sir. Words are not enough to thank their constant guidance and support to shape the event. I, on behalf of the organizing committee, convey deep regards and hearty thankful to our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor V. Narayanan sir. I am also thankful to the Registrar, Dr. A. Gopalakrishnan sir, and our Finance Officer, Dr. Sunil Kumar sir. They helped us in obtaining joint registrar Sree Sankara sir. They helped us in obtaining the necessary administrative approval for organizing the event in our university. My special thanks to our own Professor V. Ramakrishna sir for his gracious presence. Today my words are not enough to express the gratitude to Professor P.V. Divakaran sir, who graced us with his kind words. On behalf of our university, I extend a hearty vote of thanks to our chief guest, Professor P.V. Divakaran sir, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace the occasion. Today we had an opportunity to hear your thoughts, and this will surely encourage us in all our future endeavors. Your thoughts have enlightened our minds and have shown us a new path. Your deep and intellectual way of imparting knowledge has added to the glory of this event. Today we have got a lot of information which will truly help us in your life. We have no words to offer gratitude for your valuable presence here. Sir, you gave deep insight into the topics and revealed some interesting facts. Thank you, sir, for your esteemed I would like to thank our heads of departments for their constant help and guidance. giving special thanks for the students who have got endowment awards and their parents who supported them. I am very much thankful to all our current and former faculties, colleagues, and non-teaching staff members who always uh, stand by us and motivate us. I feel proud and thankful for making this event and a successful one. I am grateful, gratified all the audience through offline and online for coming here and for their best wishes for this event. Last but not the least, a big thank you to each one of you who made the celebration memorable. We thank you for being within us. It has reminded us pronounced with pleasure. Have a great day ahead. Thank you. Thank you.
ശങ്കര ജയന്തി ആഘോഷങ്ങളുടെ ആദ്യത്തെ സെഷൻ ഇവിടെ അവസാനിക്കുകയാണ്. ശങ്കര ജയന്തിയുടെ അടുത്ത സെഷൻ ഉച്ചയ്ക്ക് ശേഷം 2:30 ഇതേ വേദിയിൽ ആരംഭിക്കും. MFA വിദ്യാർത്ഥികളുടെ ചിത്രകലാ പ്രദർശനത്തിന്റെ ഉദ്ഘാടനവും ചിത്രകലാ പ്രദർശനവും ഉണ്ടായിരിക്കുന്നതാണ്. വൈകുന്നേരം 4 മണിക്ക് ഭരതനാട്യം, മോഹിനിയാട്ടം വിഭാഗങ്ങളുടെ നൃത്താവതരണം കൂത്തമ്പലത്തിൽ അരങ്ങേറും. എല്ലാവരെയും പരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് സ്നേഹപൂർവ്വം ക്ഷണിക്കുന്നു.
With that, the official inaugural session has come to a conclusion. Now we will break for lunch and will move to the next session of the Sanskrit Jayanthi celebrations afterwards. For the afternoon session, various cultural programs have been organized. The session will begin with the inauguration of the art exhibition by the MFA students at 2:30 p.m. in the same venue. This will be followed by Bharatanatyam and Mohiniyattam performances organized by the respective departments at Kuttaparam. Thank you all for your time and patience. We all have learned something new today, and that's precisely what